Sha Hu and the imposing middle-aged man's gazes collided, and sparks seemed to fly, causing all the people from Sea Temple to not dare breath loudly, all of them standing aside in fear. After a long time, Sha Hu sighed and the aggression in his eyes faded as he spoke to this middle-aged man despondently. Huayan, Yang Kai is this old master's guest, so he will entertain him himself. You and everyone else can withdraw. Hearing how Sha Hu addressed this middle-aged man, Yang Kai immediately understood who the latter was. Sea Temple's first temple master, Zhang Huayan. Yang Kai had also heard Zhang Huayan's name before. When he participated in Heavenly Fate City's auction for the first time, this Zhang Huayan had used an incredible sum of money to buy one of the origin-grade low-rank origin condensing pills he had sold. Yang Kai heard from Wei Guchang later that Zhang Huayan had bought this origin condensing pill for his son. However, this was Yang Kai's first time meeting him. Yang Kai casually examined the Sea Temple's first temple master and found that Zhang Huayan had reached the peak of the origin returning realm and his aura was a bit denser than Chen Tong when the latter was still at the same level. It seemed this man was qualified to be named Sea Temple's first temple master. Moreover, this man's courage obviously was not small. Yang Kai did not know what kind of conflict there was between Zhang Huayan and Sha Hu, but it was obvious their relationship wasn't very harmonious. Zhang Huayan smiled and said, "Martial Uncle Sha's words are somewhat improper. Although this sect Master Yang may be your guest, he seems to want to collude with the Sea Clan, so Martial Uncle will have to forgive Martial Nephew for not being able to stand idly by. Martial Uncle should also understand the deep grievances between the Sea Clan and my Sea Temple. Every year, many of my Sea Temple's disciples die tragic deaths at the hands of the Sea Clan, especially those from Sea God Palace. Saying Sea God Palace is my Sea Temple's greatest enemy would not be an exaggeration. Martial Uncle, since you know this person, it would be best if you removed yourself from this situation and allowed Martial Nephew to process it properly. Once Martial Nephew is finished, he will give you a satisfactory explanation." Yang Kai raised his brow as he faintly realized that he seemed to be caught up in some kind of internal power struggle between Zhang Huayan and Sha Hu. It looks like every family has its own share of troubles. Yang Kai sighed secretly. "Huayan, do you really insist on acting this way?" Sha Hu's face became gloomy, not showing any intention of backing down. "Martial Nephew is acting in Sea Temple's best interest," Zhang Huayan replied bluntly, showing neither evasiveness nor guilt. "Please forgive me, Martial Uncle." Sha Hu stared at Zhang Huayan unkindly, and there were even faint signs of him condensing his Saint Qi, as if preparing to attack. Perceiving this, Zhang Huayan actually showed no fear. Rather, an eager light flashed across his eyes, as if hoping Sha Hu would indeed act. "Old Sha, what's going on here?" Yang Kai asked in confusion. Sha Hu turned his head and glanced at him before sighing and saying, "This old master is ashamed. Because he showed too much compassion, he has involved you in this mess." "Old Sha is too serious," Yang Kai chuckled. "It's just that all of this has left me a little baffled. Just wait a moment while this old master settles this matter. I will speak to you after," Sha Hu said. "Sure." Yang Kai nodded, putting on a posture of a bystander as he smiled lightly. Sha Hu turned his gaze to Zhang Huayan and said with a heavy tone, "Huayan, many years ago, you were one of greatest geniuses of my Sea Temple, but you were too narrow-minded at the time. This old master had thought that after so many years had passed and you inherited the position of First Temple Master, standing higher and seeing further, your attitude would change, but you've greatly disappointed this old master. It seems that no matter how high you climb, or how deep the cultivation becomes, Zhang Huayan will always be the same Zhang Huayan from back then. Nothing will change." After being defamed so blatantly by Sha Hu in front of so many of Sea Temple's masters, Zhang Huayan obviously became somewhat annoyed and snapped. "Martial Uncle need not concern himself with how Martial Nephew handles his duties." Sha Hu slowly shook his head. "A man's position may change, but his nature does not. This old master has been missing for 300 years and was only able to return to Sea Temple thanks to Sect Master Yang's assistance. After returning home, this old master brought with him an opportunity for Sea Temple to develop and grow, thinking he could contribute something to make up for all the years he failed to attend to the sect. But now it seems that you, the first of Sea Temple's 3 temple masters, believes this old master wants to use this as an opening to seize the position of first temple master. Nonsense. To be perfectly blunt, this old master could not care less about being a temple master of Sea Temple. Jiang Huaiyan's brow twitched slightly as he stared at Sha Hu, as if trying to see whether he was telling the truth or lies. Yang Kai, standing at the side, however, showed a look of understanding, finally comprehending what this situation was all about. Obviously, Jiang Huaiyan was being overly suspicious and pessimistic, thinking that Sha Hu's return was a threat to his status. So he was making things difficult here in an attempt to suppress Sha Hu. As for colluding with the Sea Clan, it was just a convenient excuse. Even without this excuse, Sea Temple would have found some other reason to refuse Yang Kai's proposal. It could only be said that Yang Kai had inadvertently stepped into a power struggle and was now being regarded as a type of bargaining chip. Sha Hu obviously did not want to fight for power with Jiang Huaiyan. After living 300 years on Shadowed Soul Island, Sha Hu had clearly moved beyond caring about status and fortune, and was now solely focused on pursuing greater heights in the martial Dao. However, Jiang Huaiyan was now Sea Temple's first temple master, so no matter how unhappy Sha Hu was with his attitude, he could not bring himself to take decisive action against him. This was why Sha Hu had said this was all a result of too much compassion on his part. Now that Jiang Huaiyan had come forward to threaten Yang Kai though, Sha Hu could no longer endure patiently and was forced to come forward. All kinds of thoughts flashed through Yang Kai's mind like sparks, allowing him to grasp the situation before him in short order. This old master will give you one last chance. Apologize to Sect Master Yang and I will act as if this never happened. From now on, you will remain the first temple master of Sea Temple, while this old master can leave and never return. Sha Hu looked at Jiang Huaiyan coldly and stated bluntly. The latter's brow furrowed as anger clearly flashed across his eyes. Sha Hu, relying on his age and status to talk down to him in such a commanding tone, naturally made Jiang Huaiyan very unhappy. If he did as Sha Hu said and apologized to Yang Kai here, Jiang Huaiyan would lose all face as the first temple master. Everyone would simply assume from now on that he was a puppet that Sha Hu arranged to show the public while he ruled from behind. This was intolerable to Jiang Huaiyan. Martial uncle, you are the most senior master in Sea Temple and martial nephew has always respected you. But today you have disappointed martial nephew greatly. As one of my Sea Temple's grand elders, not only do you ignore Sea Temple's position, you even demand this temple master apologize to an outsider. Martial uncle, this temple master will also give you one last chance to leave and not participate in this matter. Do so, and martial nephew promises to continue respecting you as his senior in the future. Otherwise, don't blame martial nephew for not showing due courtesy. It looks like there's nothing more to say. Sha Hu sighed sadly. He also did not expect that he would encounter such a farcical situation so soon after his long-awaited return to Sea Temple. If he had known this before, he would have simply chosen to remain on Shadowed Soul Island until he calmly died of old age. Martial uncle, are you determined to fight against this temple master and against Sea Temple? Jiang Huaiyan narrowed his eyes at Sha Hu while leveling some outlandish slander. Sha Hu remained silent, his expression simply sorrowful. Since that's the case, martial nephew won't act polite. Jiang Huaiyan suddenly yelled, "Start the array!" As soon as these words fell, all Black Reef Island suddenly buzzed and trembled, and in the next moment, a bright light curtain shrouded the entire island, and the sea within 100 kilometers of the shore began to tumble and surge. An incredibly rich water attribute aura gathered towards Black Reef Island rapidly as numerous strange beasts and weapons composed entirely of water attribute energy quickly began to form densely. A ruinous pressure erupted at the same time. Sha Hu's face changed drastically as he exclaimed, "The blue roaring tidal array! So, you were planning all along to embarrass this old master with this array?" Jiang Huaiyan smiled and said, "Martial uncle must be joking. This spirit array is not aimed at martial uncle. After all, you are still a member of my Sea Temple." Having said so, Jiang Huaiyan turned to look at Yang Kai. "Rather than coping with old Sha, you intend to use this to deal with me?" Yang Kai pointed to his own nose nonchalantly. Jiang Huaiyan smiled coldly, I've heard that Sect Master Yang is so powerful that even the leaders of Heaven Battling Union, Thunder Typhoon Sect, and Star Emperor Mountain cannot compare. So this Temple Master naturally must take some precautions. Temple Master Jiang is too polite. It's all just a little undue praise which was spread out by others. Humph. Sect Master Yang is the Sect Master of High Heaven Sect and should have kept his nose out of my Sea Temple's affairs. But since you dare collude with the Sea Clan, that makes you an enemy of my Sea Temple. Sect Master Yang. Surrender without a fight. Zhang Huaiyan looked at Yang Kai proudly, as if he was completely confident that Yang Kai could not resist in the face of this blue roaring tidal array. Yang Kai, leave now. Sha Hu suddenly shouted. The blue roaring tidal array is my Sea Temple Sect defending array, and can draw power from the surrounding rich water attribute aura. Once activated, its might is infinite and none below the Origin King realm can break it. However, with your ability, it should not be difficult for you to leave. You go first. This old master will buy you some time. As expected of Martial Uncle, your understanding of my Sea Temple Sect defending array is quite profound. But should Martial Uncle really be explaining these secrets to an outsider? Zhang Huaiyan sneered at Sha Hu. Dissolute. This old master has already said that he has no intention of competing with you. Why must you act so short-sighted? If you continue acting this way, sooner or later, Sea Temple will decline in your hands. For the sake of the ancestors, this old master does not want to fight with you. Old Sha, stay calm. Yang Kai gently patted Sha Hu's shoulder, looking completely calm and relaxed. You. Sha Hu stomped his feet in annoyance. Once this spirit array is activated, the longer you wait, the more power it accumulates and the stronger its power becomes. If you continue to hesitate, even you won't be able to escape. Why should I escape? Yang Kai chuckled. It's just a mere spirit array. What? Sha Hu's jaw went slack hearing Yang Kai's nonchalant evaluation of the blue roaring tidal array. However, seeing Yang Kai's extremely indifferent expression, Sha Hu's furrowed brow relaxed, and he thoughtfully said, Since you have such confidence, this old master won't waste his breath. Just be careful. And Yang Kai nodded before his expression turned a little sullen. Suddenly being treated as a bargaining chip makes this sect master very unhappy. Old Sha, does it matter if I kill this Zhang Huaiyan? Sha Hu heard this and sighed. Keep him alive. This old master will deal with it himself. As you wish. You want to kill me? Let's see if you have the ability. Zhang Huaiyan glared angrily at Yang Kai. Yang Kai's calmness made him extremely annoyed and also gave him an unsettling feeling. He didn't know whether Yang Kai really had something to rely on that allowed him to not fear the blue roaring tidal array. After all, there were too many rumors about Yang Kai and how he was a master that greatly surpassed the pinnacle of the Origin returning realm. However, no matter how tyrannical his personal strength is, this man could not be stronger than our Grand Spirit Array, right? Thinking so, Zhang Huaiyan's anxiety calmed greatly, and he stared at Yang Kai coldly, his expression filled with disdain. As time passed, the power of the blue roaring tidal array became stronger and stronger, feeding on the abundant water attribute energy in the surroundings, condensing more and more beasts and weapons within its range. The pressure coming from this array made even Sha Hu pale slightly. Yang Kai still did not show any intention of moving though, simply standing in place and seemingly appreciating the power of this blue roaring tidal array. After a half cup of tea's time, the power of the blue roaring tidal array has been raised to its peak. The sounds of crashing waves grew ever louder, making everyone present feel somewhat uneasy as they looked up into the sky, which was filled with countless beasts and weapons that seemed to be just waiting to pounce and rip Yang Kai into 10,000 pieces. Zhang Huaiyan's face now showed a completely relaxed expression as he knew that now, even if Yang Kai had astonishing ability, he couldn't escape from the blue roaring tidal array. This massive sect defending array had been arranged and enhanced by countless masters over Sea Temple's history and had never failed to shelter the sect from danger in the past. Sect Master Yang, considering you are a guest of Martial Uncle Sha, surrender without a fight and this temple master can consider showing mercy. What do you say? Zhang Huaiyan looked at Yang Kai lightly and snorted. I refuse. Yang Kai shook his head, looking at Zhang Huayan with a smile. I came here with sincerity, but never expected to be treated like this. Honestly, your Sea Temple annoys this sect master, and if it were not for old Sha here, this sect master would wipe away your Sea Temple from Shadowed Star. But since Sea Temple is old Sha's sect, I will spare you from that fate. You think you alone can remove my Sea Temple from Shadowed Star? Who gave you the gall? Zhang Huayan roared. You think you have such ability? Yang Kai grinned meaningfully and simply stared towards Zhang Huayan lightly before casually speaking a single word. Break! As soon as this word was spoken, the blue roaring tidal array which had already reached the apex of its strength, with countless strange beasts and floating weapons surrounding Yang Kai, suddenly released a popping noise and burst apart. Even the bright light curtain covering Black Reef Island suddenly cracked and shattered. The sect defending array of Sea Temple was instantly broken. It was as if Yang Kai's words carried some supreme power that commanded even the world itself to obey him. Sha, who was dumbfounded, completely shocked to his core as he stared towards Yang Kai in utter disbelief, as if he did not know the man in front of him now. Zhang Huayan also stood dumbfounded on the spot, staring at Yang Kai, then sweeping his eyes around his surroundings, unable to believe that the blue roaring tidal array had really been broken by a single word. Third Temple Master Qi Yunhai was even more stunned, his body trembling slightly. The remaining Sea Temple Masters also cried out in disbelief. What happened? After a while, Zhang Huayan finally reacted and yelled at Qi Yunhai. What happened to the disciples managing the array? Why did they stop it? He obviously thought that the failure of the blue roaring tidal array was because the disciples had stopped operating it, not because of something Yang Kai had done. Qi Yunhai quickly took out a communication artifact, poured his divine sense into it, and contacted the disciples in charge of managing the blue roaring tidal array. A moment later, he hurriedly said, First Temple Master, the disciples have not stopped the spirit array, but for some reason, it has simply ceased functioning. How can this be? Zhang Huayan's eyes trembled as he stared at Yang Kai in horror. Yang Kai grinned. Don't waste your time. The world energy within 100,000 kilometers of this place is now under my control. Without my consent, your prided spirit array is nothing but a fancy decoration. Nonsense! Zhang Huayan screamed. Even if you are an origin king, it would be impossible to control the world energy across such a wide area. Do you think this temple master is a fool? Yang Kai simply chuckled before lifting his hand up slowly. Although his movements were not fast, quite slow in fact, as Yang Kai lifted his hand, the sea around Black Reef Island began to boil fiercely with massive bubbles continuously rising to its surface. Massive vortices began forming around Black Reef Island one after another. Hong hong hong. Thick water columns then burst forth from these vortices, each one several dozen meters thick, soaring straight up into the sky, even bursting through the clouds above. The entire world seemed to tremble, causing everyone's footing to become unstable. The sea level around Black Reef Island seemed to drop slightly as this happened. The water columns which rushed up into the sky abruptly transformed into a series of azure water dragons, each one with vivid and realistic features, even their bodies forming thick blue dragon scales. In the blink of an eye around Black Reef Island, hundreds of water dragons formed purely from the convergence of seawater had appeared. In the next instant, all these water dragons rushed towards Black Reef Island, only pausing when they came to within a few dozen meters of its shores, their eyes all gazing down at the people before them imposingly. Black Reef Island was instantly surrounded by hundreds of water dragons, each thousands of meters long, dozens of meters thick, and radiating an astonishing destructive pressure. It was not difficult to imagine that Black Reef Island would quickly be destroyed if these hundreds of water dragons rushed forward. Yang Kai, who was the culprit behind all of this, had only just lifted his arm slightly, not showing any signs of using his Saint Chi or any other kind of strength at all. On Black Reef Island, panicked cries rang out constantly. Suddenly being surrounded by so many water dragons, the disciples of Sea Temple were naturally terrified. They did not know what was happening, but under the terrifying pressure, many fell to the ground or scrambled to escape chaotically. Zhang Huayan could no longer restrain the panic in his heart as he trembled violently, looking at Yang Kai as if he was some kind of monster, unable to understand how he had managed to accomplish this. No one dared doubt whether Yang Kai had the ability to remove Sea Temple from Shadowed Star anymore, as proof was now on display before them. Impossible! This temple master will never believe this. It must be some kind of illusion. Zhang Huaiyan still seemed unwilling to give up and quickly came up with a rationalization for the situation. Turning to Yang Kai and shouting, "It turns out that Sect Master Yang has cultivated a profound illusion technique. This temple master was almost fooled by you. Stubborn fool." Yang Kai coldly snorted before, with a single thought, he sent one of the water dragons towards Zhang Huaiyan. Midair. The huge water dragon distorted and transformed into a water spear only 10 meters long as it stabbed towards Zhang Huaiyan. Zhang Huaiyan roared as he pushed his Saint Chi madly, stretching out his hands and executing some kind of secret technique that formed a kind of shield in front of him. His efforts were in vain, however, and the water spear instantly pierced through the shield without stagnating in the slightest. Zhang Huaiyan was shocked as he was forced to realize that everything in front of him was not an illusion, but real. By the time he came to this understanding, it was too late for him to dodge. The water arrow pierced through Zhang Huaiyan's body, causing a great splash of blood as it shot out his back. Zhang Huaiyan's eyes widened as he collapsed backwards. However, because of Sha Hu's previous plea, Yang Kai did not kill him. Even so, this blow had taken most of Zhang Huaiyan's remaining life, and if he weren't given immediate treatment, his cultivation would definitely drop significantly. With a single word, the world obeys. With a single thought, mountains are flattened and seas are boiled. Yang Kai, have you refined Shadowed Star Source? Sha Hu asked with a trembling voice, an amazed light flashing across his eyes. What? Qi Yunhai's face changed drastically as he stared at Yang Kai in utter shock. Refining the star source was something that only existed in legends. Once a cultivator refined a star source, they would become the star master of that cultivation star and become capable of controlling everything on it at will. Qi Yunhai was subconsciously unwilling to believe something so unthinkable was real, because it was said that if one wanted to refine a star source, it was necessary to be a third-order origin king first. There were, of course, rumors that second-order origin kings with great luck were able to refine star sources and became star masters. However, even that was too distant a concept, especially for the cultivators of Shadowed Star. Yang Kai was a trivial third-order origin returning realm cultivator, so how could he have possibly refined the star source? But if this were not the case, how else could the scene here be explained? Even an ordinary origin king may not be able to display such might, right? Only a star master who commanded the forces of nature themselves on a cultivation star and could dominate its world energy as he pleased could condense the oceans themselves into water dragons. Old Sha's eyes are quite sharp. I was indeed fortunate enough to have such an opportunity. Yang Kai smiled slightly, not attempting to deny it. Qi Yunhai could not help groaning in his heart. He suddenly discovered that he had done something with Zhang Huai and that he would regret for the rest of his life. Was there anything more foolish than trying to plot against Shadowed Star's Star Master on Shadowed Star? As I thought. Old Sha sighed softly and shook his head ruefully. Such foolishness! He was obviously blaming Zhang Huai for his short-sightedness. Originally, his friendship with Yang Kai was quite good, but after this incident, Yang Kai's impression of Sea Temple would definitely be poor, and this would have a dramatically negative influence on the future development of Sea Temple. Somewhere on Black Reef Island, Yang Kai was sitting cross-legged, his eyes closed, maintaining a state of mental tranquility. The light sound of footsteps rang out nearby, causing Yang Kai to open his eyes and see Sea Temple's third temple master Qi Yunhai along with a small group of others. Facing Yang Kai's gaze, Qi Yunhai quickly lowered his head, putting on a respectful look. After learning that Yang Kai was the star master of Shadowed Star, Qi Yunhai had not dared act presumptuous anymore. Although his cultivation was the same as Yang Kai's, the latter was a genuine star master. Even if there were 1,000 Qi Yunhais, they would not be Yang Kai's opponent. Immediately, Qi Yunhai professed wrongs and swore he had been enlightened, apologizing profusely for his mistakes. Zhang Huaiyan had been crippled by Yang Kai, and the position of First Temple Master was vacant. So although Shahu was dissatisfied with Qiyunhai coveting life while fearing death, he had to compromise for Sea Temple's sake and did not try to embarrass him further, even going so far as to ask Yang Kai to spare Qiyunhai's life. Sect Master Yang, I've brought the people and materials you requested. Qiyunhai stopped 5 meters away from Yang Kai and stood still while reporting respectfully. Yang Kai raised his eyes and looked at the 6 people behind Qiyunhai, nodding lightly before stretching out his hand and saying, "Give them to me." Yes. Qiyunhai stepped forward and handed a space ring to Yang Kai. Yang Kai swept the contents of this ring with his divine sense, and upon confirming that everything he had requested was inside, he nodded. "Good, you may leave. Tell old Shah that the space array here will take about 7 or 8 days to complete and that he need not worry about it. He can focus on settling the internal affairs of Sea Temple first." With Zhang Huaiyan being crippled, there were inevitably some turbulences in Sea Temple, so although Shah, who had no intention of getting involved with such mundane matters, only he could assume command at this moment and was therefore quite busy. "Many thanks for your consideration, Sect Master Yang. I will definitely bring Martial Uncle Shah your message." N. Qiyunhai quickly left, seemingly not daring to remain near Yang Kai for a long time. After he left, though, Yang Kai looked at the remaining 6 cultivators. Among these 6, there were males and females, old and young. What was unusual was that those who were old seemed to be very old, while those who were very young, possibly below 20 years old. These 6 also weren't strong. The fiercest among them only a first-order origin realm cultivator, while the weakest was only a third-order saint. While Yang Kai observed these 6 were also observing Yang Kai, their eyes filled with curiosity. After all, this young man in front of them rumored to be the Star Master of Shadowed Star. In other words, he was the Lord of the Cultivation Star they lived on. Before bringing them here, Qiyunhai had also specifically warned them to absolutely obey Yang Kai and to follow any instructions he gave them. If they were to offend Yang Kai in any way, they would suffer severe punishment under the sect's laws. "You are the best array masters in Sea Temple?" Yang Kai asked with a smile. Among the 6, an old man stepped forward, cupped his fists and replied, "Reporting to Sect Master Yang, we 6 are indeed the most talented array masters in Sea Temple." "Good." Yang Kai gently nodded. "Before Qiyunhai brought you here, he should have told you the reason." "Yes." Third Temple Master said that we would be assisting Sect Master Yang in refining a space array to connect my Sea Temple and High Heaven Sect in order to facilitate an exchange of cultivation materials between our 2 forces. The old man replied again. "And, since you understand, I won't bother with any nonsense. In terms of materials, your Sea Temple has provided everything necessary, and all that's left is to refine them into an array base and then engrave the appropriate spirit array. I believe this shouldn't be a difficult task for you." The old man seemed to realize that Yang Kai was not the domineering and wicked person he had imagined, and instead actually possessed a friendly attitude, allowing him to relax significantly. Proudly nodding his head, the old man replied, "As long as we are provided with the appropriate refining method, we 6 will definitely not disappoint Sect Master Yang." "Great!" Yang Kai smiled lightly as he beckoned the 6 people over and began explaining to them what kind of materials should be smelted together, as well as the general shape the finished products needed to be refined into. These 6 people had extremely high accomplishments in arranging spirit arrays, far better than Yang Kai's at least, so after only a brief explanation, they had comprehended what they needed to do. Next, Yang Kai took out the materials prepared by Sea Temple one by one, divided them into categories, and gave them to his 6 assistants to begin the refinement process. The layout of a space array was extremely complicated, but before coming here, Yang Kai had already arranged one outside High Heaven Sect, so he had some familiarity with the process now. Yang Kai did most of the primary work himself and had only asked Qiyunhai to bring these 6 people over in order to save him some time on the more menial tasks. Yang Kai was not worried about what these 6 learned during this period, as the most fundamental spirit array of this space array was still exclusively held onto by him. As long as this array wasn't leaked out, even if these 6 tried to arrange a space array of their own, it wouldn't work. In this remote clearing on Black Reef Island, 7 people worked quietly. 5 days later, A space array with a 10-meter radius had been fully arranged. Just looking at it, one could tell that this space array was not the same as the ones which were seen in major cities. It appeared much plainer and was essentially just a large circular platform. The biggest difference, appearance-wise, was its significantly larger size. This space array was designed to span a distance of several million kilometers and could accommodate up to 50 people at once. This was incomparable to the space arrays currently on Shadowed Star. With the basic structure now set up, Xianxia now needed to engrave the actual spirit array himself. The 6 array masters of Sea Temple did not leave, however, and instead stood quietly to the side, paying close attention to Xianxia's movements. Unfortunately, no matter how they looked, they were unable to glean any useful information. Xianxia's divine sense shuttled back and forth inside the array base, rapidly portraying a series of mysterious and complicated patterns and runes, which gradually formed the space array's spirit array. With his conflagrated spiritual energy, it was easy for Xianxia to leave precise markings on the already refined materials. The entire process went incredibly smoothly, and Xianxia was finished after only half an hour. After checking it carefully, Xianxia smiled upon confirming that there were no errors in the spirit array. Pouring his space force into the space array, Xianxia activated it and established a connection with the space array he had arranged outside High Heaven Sect. "Is it completed?" the old man asked hesitantly. "Basically, as long as you insert enough Saint crystals to power it, it should function properly." Xianxia nodded and replied. The 6 people all gasped as they stared at Xianxia in admiration. A new space array. It had only taken 5 days to arrange such a massive space array. If they were to tell their peers about this matter, none would believe them. On Shadowed Star, the method to arrange space arrays had long been lost, while all the existing space arrays were relics from ancient times. The most the current cultivators could do was make some simple repairs, but they couldn't arrange a new one. Moreover, even in ancient times, when that layout method was still known, spending such a short time to arrange such a space array was certainly unheard of. The ancient records of great sects said that the arrangement of a space array was a laborious task that cost a massive amount of time and resources to complete. It would already be a great accomplishment to complete a functional space array within a few years. But now they had arranged one in just 5 days. The 6 array masters exchanged looks of disbelief amongst themselves as each of them felt a sense of excitement and glory in their hearts. After all, they had contributed to the arrangement of this space array. Sect Master Yang. Is it possible for this old master to try it? The old man rubbed his hands excitedly and asked. Although being the first person to use this new space array did not have any substantial benefits to him it was a matter of honor. "Wait a moment." Xianxia chuckled before taking out some strange materials from his space ring and quickly smelting them together. Under his intense Saint Qi, the impurities in these materials were rapidly removed and the useful metals were gradually amalgamated and shaped. The 6 people did not know what Xianxia was doing, but they all waited patiently in anticipation. Soon, a small token appeared in Xianxia's hand. This token was unremarkable and dull in color, not even giving off any energy fluctuations. The only distinctive feature was the high character engraved on it. This character had a certain charm to it that evoked images of soaring dragons and phoenixes. Xianxia refined 6 such tokens in total and tossed one to each of the 6 waiting array masters. Each of the 6 people caught their respective token and examined it carefully. The old man seemed to think of something and wore a look of excitement on his face as he hastily asked, "Sect Master Yang, dare I ask, is this?" He was misunderstanding something, however, thinking that Xianxia had given them something precious. "These are transmission tokens. Without a transmission token, the only result of activating this space array will be exile to the void, never to return." Xianxia explained lightly. The expressions of the 6 people changed greatly, only now understanding the purpose of these 6 tokens, especially refined by Xianxia. The old man quickly composed himself as he realized the importance of these tokens and cupped his fists. "Sect Master Yang is quite meticulous. This old master is impressed. With these tokens, the risk of a large number of cultivators suddenly being able to invade either of our 2 forces using this space array can be mostly eliminated." When the other 5 people heard him say this, They finally understood the reason Xianxia had refined these tokens. Although space arrays were convenient in that they connected two distant places, if an enemy ever managed to take control of it, it would then become a risk as it would offer a means to invade directly into the heart of one's force. However, with the transmission token refined by Xianxia, this risk was mitigated. Without a transmission token, it was impossible to use this space array. Xianxia just smiled and did not say anything. With a wave of his hand, he used his Saint Chi to envelope the 6 people and stood atop the space array. Let's test whether this array can be used then. Before the 6 array masters of Sea Temple had time to speak, Xianxia had already inserted the necessary Saint crystals to activate the array. The space array immediately started up, and after a burst of white light, the 6 array masters only felt a slight weightless sensation overcome them. By the time they reacted, the scenery in front of them had changed drastically. Looking around, the earth was a charred, reddish-black color, and the surrounding air was filled with a rich fire attribute energy, making it a bit stifling. This was completely different from the limitless ocean where Sea Temple was located. Below their feet was a large round space array identical to the one they had just finished arranging. Around them, there were several cultivators busy erecting a large palace that was clearly a work in progress. The busy cultivators nearby were all wearing uniform robes with a small high character embroidered over their chests. High Heaven Sect Disciples. The 6 Sea Temple people immediately realized they had arrived at High Heaven Sect as the environment around them was very similar to the legendary Flowing Flame Sand Field. The activation of the space array alarmed the nearby High Heaven Sect disciples, and a few quickly came to investigate. But upon discovering that the newcomer was Xianxia, the disciples quickly cupped their fists in salute. Xianxia simply waved his hand. "I'm just testing whether this space array works properly. Carry on with what you were doing." Yes. The disciples received their orders and dispersed. This space array was placed outside the Flowing Flame Sand Field by Xianxia in order to avoid the drawbacks of there being a direct entryway into High Heaven Sect's headquarters. This space array was of great significance, as it was the bridge which connected High Heaven Sect to the larger world. Xianxia intended to set up special space arrays in all major cities across Shadowed Star, so that High Heaven Sect could reach anywhere at any time in an instant. This would be of key importance to the future development of High Heaven Sect. Sect Master. One High Heaven Sect disciple didn't leave immediately but stood there respectfully cupping his fists. "Is there something else? Great Elder told me a few days ago that if Sect Master appears, I am to inform him that half a month ago, Shadow Moon Hall's Sect Master Qian sent a request for Sect Master to visit Shadow Moon Hall to discuss a certain matter." Xianxia nodded. The disciple then retreated. Xianxia did not know what Qiantong was looking for him for, but it should not be an urgent matter, otherwise, he would have come in person rather than simply requesting Xianxia come see him. Additionally, the current Qiantong was an origin king, so few things in this world could threaten him. Xianxia did not consider this matter urgent and decided to prioritize finishing his current task before going to Shadow Moon Hall to meet with Qiantong. After experimenting with the space array, Xianxia returned to Black Reef Island along with the 6 Sea Temple array masters. The 6 cultivators seemed to still be a bit unsatiated. The old man looked towards Xianxia with extreme admiration and said, "Sect Master Yang, this old master has used many space arrays over his life, but every time, the farther the transmission distance, the more backlash he received. However, this space array causes no discomfort or dizziness at all. A truly brilliant achievement. This old master is in awe of Sect Master Yang's great talent." The other 5 people also nodded in agreement. Space arrays were truly convenient tools to use, but teleporting over long distances caused great strain on a cultivator. This strain was not only related to one's physical body, but also one's soul. The further the distance one teleported, the greater the load. Therefore, weaker cultivators did not dare use space arrays to teleport too far. Under the most extreme of circumstances, teleporting a greater distance than one was capable of withstanding would destroy one's knowledge sea, leaving them brain dead. Even short-distance teleportations couldn't be conducted too frequently. Among these 6 array masters, all of them had used space arrays multiple times, so all of them were well aware of the drawbacks. However, the ultra-long distance teleportation they just conducted, one on the order of several million kilometers, actually didn't produce any kind of discomfort. Using this space array felt no more difficult than visiting a neighbor's house. In other words, the space array arranged by Xianxia had far surpassed the ability of those ancient relics in terms of stability and usability. This caused the 6 array masters to respect and admire Xianxia even more than before. Xianxia just smiled lightly. "It's nothing much. And please transfer the transmission tokens in your hands to old Xia and inform him that when everything in Sea Temple has been settled, he can send someone to High Heaven Sect to meet with Great Elder Yi to discuss the material exchange." Is Sect Master Yang planning on leaving now? Do you not want to stop and rest for a few days and meet with Martial Uncle Xia? The old man attempted to retain Xianxia. "No, I need to head for Sea God Palace." Xianxia waved his hand and his figure flickered, disappearing from where he stood. A look of regret appeared on the faces of the 6, but after a brief discussion, they hurried to the center of Black Reef Island. The 6 transmission tokens were of great importance, and they did not dare treat them carelessly. Sea God Palace was the other great force on the limitless ocean together with Sea Temple and was composed of almost all the sentient ocean races. In fact, Sea God Palace was stronger than Sea Temple both in terms of the number of masters it possessed and the strength it wielded. Although there was some friction from time to time between these two giants though, neither side desired to go to war on a large scale, so they were able to coexist. Sea God Palace's headquarters was located somewhere deep underwater and composed of a sprawling number of beautiful undersea palaces protected by powerful spirit arrays. There was even breathable air in some places, the ocean held back by strong barriers. To others, looking for the headquarters of Sea God Palace on the huge limitless ocean floor was akin to looking for a needle in a haystack. Even Sea Temple was unable to figure out where Sea God Palace was located. But to Xianxia this was a simple matter. After leaving Black Reef Island, it only took him a day to locate Sea God Palace and easily arrive at its entrance. Here, he did not encounter any difficulties. Although the Sea Clan looked down on the human race, it also respected powerful masters. Xianxia undoubtedly was qualified to receive a courteous reception here. What's more, the little dolphin, the Sea Clan's princess, was extremely close to Xianxia. Qianmo and Xianxia, 2 of the 8 generals, also owed Xianxia a life-saving gratitude. As such, forming a cooperative relationship with the Sea Clan was easier than forming one with Sea Temple. Xianxia immediately met with the Sea Clan's king, the father of the little dolphin and patriarch of the Dolphin Flood Dragon clan, Lai Kong. After engaging in a small exchange of pointers, Lai Kong realized how deep and unfathomable Xianxia's strength was and quickly agreed to his proposed trade arrangement. Just like in Sea Temple, Xianxia requested Sea God Palace provide him with some materials, and a 3rd space array, as well as several transmission tokens, were produced inside Sea God Palace a few days later. With space arrays in Sea Temple and Sea God Palace, High Heaven Sect was now able to obtain massive amounts of deep-sea resources anytime it wanted. Now, whether these resources were used or sold, High Heaven Sect would never lose money. In fact, using this trade route, it would be possible for High Heaven Sect to rapidly expand its available materials, making it so that its disciples never had to worry about having enough cultivation resources to use. This was an advantage that no other sect on Shadowed Star possessed. Xianxia did not intend to stay in Sea God Palace for long, so after he finished arranging the space array, he bid farewell to Lai Kong and prepared to depart. However, before leaving, something unexpected happened. The little dolphin came swimming up to Xianxia's side with a bead in her mouth and handed it to him. This bead was the size of a fist and was azure blue, just like the deep sea. Although this bead was not very large, after it was pushed into his hand, Xianxia discovered that it was actually extremely heavy. What's more, he could hear the sound of crashing waves coming from it and could sense an extremely rich water attribute energy inside of it. After seeing this bead, Lai Kong, Qianmo, and Xianxia, who were all present to see Xianxia off, wore solemn expressions. Many others who were present also showed nervous expressions. I can't accept it. Xianxia smiled slightly as he gently rubbed the little dolphin's head. Although he did not know what the story behind this bead was, He could tell from the looks on everyone's faces that its value was definitely not trivial. He had just managed to establish a cooperative relationship with Sea God Palace, so rashly accepting such a heavy gift would likely only make the Sea Clan unhappy. The main reason Xianxia refused, though, was because this gift was given to him by the little dolphin. The little dolphin only had the mental age of a young child and acted entirely based on its personal preferences. In short, she could not represent the wishes of the entire Sea Clan. If this bead had been given to him by Lai Kong personally, Xianxia would have gladly accepted it. Seeing Xianxia tactfully refuse, the leaders of the Sea Clan all showed relieved expressions. The little dolphin, however, refused to give up, making a series of rapid cries as if to say it would not rest until Xianxia accepted her gift. Xianxia tried hard to persuade her, but the little dolphin absolutely would not take the bead back, soon even shedding tears of unhappiness, putting Xianxia in an incredibly awkward position and forcing him to turn to Lai Kong for help. Lai Kong anxiously looked at the little dolphin for a while before eventually his expression softened and he spoke. Since Sect Master Yang has such a close relationship with my daughter, please accept her gift. It is clear that if Sect Master Yang does not accept it, she will be very sad. After all, Sect Master Yang is her lifesaver. Sect Master Yang need not refuse. Xianxia frowned for a moment before asking, "May I ask what this thing is and what its function is?" "This is one of the treasures of my Sea God Palace, the Sea God Bead, and while it may not be of much use to Sect Master Yang personally, anyone who cultivates water attribute secret arts or secret techniques will benefit greatly from it. This is a piece of the source of the sea, so the water attribute energy it contains is not only extremely pure, but also almost inexhaustible. The Sea God Bead was a birthday gift this king gave his daughter 2 years ago, so it is her personal property and she has every right to gift it to Sect Master Yang," Lai Kong explained. "The source of the sea." Xianxia's eyes flashed. "This thing truly is of great use to me, so this Yang will not refuse." Lai Kong smiled and nodded. The other leaders of the Sea Clan, seeing how matters had already gotten this far, had no objections in the end. However, this Sea God Bead is still a bit too precious for this Xianxia to simply accept, so this Yang will exchange it for 500 origin grade Shadowed Heaven pills. What does Palace Master Lai Kong think? 500 origin grade Shadowed Heaven pills? Lai Kong's eyes lit up this time. The expressions of many of the Sea Clan leaders also suddenly became excited. The masters of the Sea Clan had already learned from Chen Mo and Shang Ao what Shadowed Heaven pills were. Although they understood that Shadowed Heaven pills were heaven-defying treasures, the primary ingredient required to refine them only existed on Shadowed Soul Island, so even if they wanted them, they could not obtain them. The little dolphin had some, but not many, all of which were given to her by Xianxia before and were considered her personal items. Who would feel right taking the Sea Clan princess pills? Even Lai Kong only took a Shadowed Heaven pill from her to study for a while before giving it back to his daughter. Yet now, Xianxia had offered them 500 origin grade Shadowed Heaven pills just like that. For the Sea Clan, this was a massive windfall. With these 500 origin grade Shadowed Heaven pills, several of Sea God Palace's peak-level masters could substantially increase their physical strength. When he heard Xianxia was willing to give Sea God Palace 500 origin grade Shadowed Heaven pills in exchange for this Sea God Bead, Lai Kong was momentarily unable to restrain his joy. "Yup." Xianxia smiled and nodded. 500 origin grade Shadowed Heaven pills, although a huge fortune, was nothing to the current High Heaven sect. The Shadowed Heaven Lotus Xianxia brought back last time had all been given to Xianxia, and she should have refined a massive amount of pills after so many days. Lai Kong coughed as he wet his dry lips. How could we accept such generosity? If Palace Master Lai Kong disagrees, then this Yang won't feel comfortable accepting this Sea God Bead. Lai Kong paused for a moment before nodding. Since Sect Master Yang is willing to go so far, this Lai Kong won't be polite. This king agrees. May friendship between Sea God Palace and High Heaven sect last forever. Great. I will have someone send the 500 Shadowed Heaven pills to Sea God Palace within a few days. Xianxia cupped his fists to the Sea Clan masters. This Yang will take his leave. Saying so, Xianxia stepped directly into the space array and teleported to the outskirts of High Heaven sect. The sea god bead he obtained by accident this time was incredibly useful to Xianxia. Although he did not cultivate any water attribute secret arts or secret techniques, the 5 elements indestructible sword tempering art required supreme treasures of each of the 5 elements. Among the 5 elements, Xianxia did not need to worry about the fire attribute supreme treasure. The energy contained within the sun's true essence was so immense that it had barely even diminished even after he had cultivated with it for so long. However, the supreme treasures Xianxia used for the other 4 elements had more or less been used up. Whether it was the thunderwood, profound in sunflower water, profound gold, or divine nullification sand, none of them would last much longer. The sea god bead Xianxia obtained this time could be used to replace the profound in sunflower water when he cultivated the 5 elements indestructible sword tempering art in the future. The sea god bead was formed from the source of the sea and had rich, pure water attribute energy. Compared with the profound in sunflower water, the sea god bead was no doubt higher in both grade and quality, so there was no issue with it meeting Xianxia's requirements. Additionally, the energy stored within it was much greater than what was contained in the profound in sunflower water. It seemed Xianxia would not need to worry about finding a new water attribute supreme treasure for a long time. However, as it was right now, Xianxia really did not have any difficulties finding supreme treasures of the other 3 elements either. All he needed to do was issue a command and supreme treasures would be delivered to him. Whether he could find a treasure comparable to the sea god bead was questionable, though. After returning to High Heaven Sect, Xianxia went straight to Yi Shiyun and told her about the deal between him and Sea God Palace and asked her to send someone to collect 500 origin-grade Shadowed Heaven pills from Xianxia. Yi Shiyun naturally did not refuse. Over the next 2 months, Xianxia traveled to various famous cities and sects on Shadowed Star, constantly arranging space arrays. 2 months later, the space array outside of High Heaven Sect had been connected to almost all corners of Shadowed Star. Now, if a disciple needed to, they could rush to any major city they wanted to in an instant. Such a massive project was something which had never appeared on Shadowed Star before. This way, High Heaven Sect could not only grasp and manage the situation across all of Shadowed Star at all times, but it could also purchase any kind of materials or products it wanted from anywhere it wanted. Xianxia's final stop was Heavenly Fate City. He needed to meet with Chen Tong as well, so Xianxia figured he could finish up arranging a space array, then have enough free time to handle whatever matter Chen Tong needed to consult him about. On this day, Xianxia arrived above Heavenly Fate City, and looking down at the post-war scene from the sky, Xianxia could not help feeling a little nostalgic. When he first came to Shadowed Star, he was nothing more than a second-order saint. But after all these years he had managed to cultivate to the peak of Shadowed Star's martial Dao. In retrospect, it was here on Dragon Cave Mountain outside Heavenly Fate City that he started his rise, ultimately leading to today's High Heaven Sect. Bit by bit, Xianxia recalled these past events as if they had only happened yesterday. Xianxia smiled slightly before flying straight towards the City Lord's mansion. After being looted by Corpse Spirit Religion, Heavenly Fate City suffered heavy devastation. But after such a long period of rebuilding, today's Heavenly Fate City was booming again. Fei Ji too was still Heavenly Fate City's City Lord. When Xianxia met with him today, Fei Ji too had already restored his cultivation to the third-order origin returning realm. It seemed that this was partly thanks to him enduring the torture of the Fangfeng Qi from Corpse Spirit Religion last time. Xianxia naturally felt happy for him, and Fei Ji too was even more excited after seeing Xianxia. Learning what Xianxia came for, he immediately permitted him to do as he pleased. Xianxia did not stand on ceremony and immediately got to work arranging the new space array in Heavenly Fate City, connecting it to High Heaven Sect. Just 2 days later, the space array had been completed. As he arranged more and more space arrays, Xianxia had become familiar with the process and was now much faster at it than when he started. With a flash of white light, Fei Ji too disappeared from atop the space array, and soon after, reappeared. Laughing heartily, he said, "Sure enough, I was teleported straight to High Heaven Sect. Our 2 sects can now communicate at any time without delay." Xianxia smiled and nodded before suddenly asking, "By the way, Senior, is old Chen coming?" When Xianxia asked about Chen Tong, Fei Ji too's expression immediately became serious as he nodded. "He's already here, but when he saw you busy setting up this space array, he decided not to bother you. You should go and meet him quickly. Old Ghost Qian seems to be having some kind of problem he cannot resolve. A problem even old Qian can't resolve? Yang Kai was stunned, not understanding what the matter was that rendered even a master like Qian Tong helpless. While he was arranging the space array here, Yang Kai already had Fei Jitu send a message to Shadow Moon Hall. 2 days was more than enough time for Qian Tong to arrive. Not delaying any further, Yang Kai quickly went to meet Qian Tong together with Fei Jitu. Inside a large hall in the city lord's mansion, Yang Kai found 3 people waiting for him. All 3 of these people were Yang Kai's old acquaintances. Other than Qian Tong, Wei Guchang and Dong Xianer were also present. Seeing Yang Kai, Qian Tong's eyes lit up and he smiled bitterly. "Little brat, seems like you haven't forgotten about me after all. Sorry old Qian, I thought whatever it was wasn't a big deal, so I didn't rush over. I've been running around Shadowed Star for the past few months." Yang Kai smiled awkwardly. If he knew that Qian Tong was so anxious, he would have come to Heavenly Fate City first. Qian Tong grinned wryly. "It's nothing so urgent otherwise. This old master would have gone to High Heaven Sect personally to find you." Wei Guchang and Dong Xianer both got up quickly to greet Yang Kai. Yang Kai replied in kind, and after scanning them with his divine sense, he noticed both of St. Chi's were flowing quite vigorously while their auras pulsed slightly, an obvious sign that they were on the verge of a breakthrough. The 2 were worthy of the most elite disciples of Shadow Moon Hall. Less than 10 years after breaking through to the origin returning realm, these 2 were about to make a breakthrough again. Logically speaking, even with the aptitude of Wei Guchang and Dong Xianer, their cultivation should not have progressed so rapidly. But Yang Kai figured their astonishing growth had something to do with the recent corpse spirit religion upheaval. Cultivators could often force out all their potential when facing desperate situations. Wei Guchang and Dong Xianer had experienced numerous life or death battles during the war, which was of great benefit to their future cultivation. When young people met, the scene inevitably became lively. While Yang Kai talked with Wei Guchang and Dong Xianer, Qian Tong and Fei Jitu did not interrupt, just sitting to the side and watching with smiles. Only after a good long chat did Yang Kai turn to Qian Tong and ask, "By the way, what is this matter you wanted to consult with me about, old Qian? I heard Senior Fei mention that even you were unable to resolve it." Qian Tong's expression gradually became serious and he nodded. "Yeah, this old master really is helpless in this situation, which is why I came to you for help." "What's the matter? You should be able to tell if you take a closer look." Qian Tong didn't answer directly, and instead began releasing a powerful and mysterious force from his figure. Domain. Domain was a power exclusive to Origin Kings and was the ultimate evolution of Shi. Qian Tong had broken through to the Origin King realm only a few years ago, so his domain was not too powerful, but even so, when he released it, the entire world seemed to tremble. Fortunately, he did not aim his domain at anyone present, instead restraining it so that even if Wei Guchang and the others felt slugging and their St. Chi circulation became slow, they did not suffer any harm. Yang Kai paid close attention to Qian Tong as requested and soon frowned deeply, releasing his divine sense to probe the latter. Seeing the look on Yang Kai's face, Qian Tong immediately knew that he had already noticed something and continued to maintain his domain, allowing Yang Kai to examine the situation more clearly. After a brief silence, Yang Kai withdrew his divine sense, but his frown remained. "Since you are the Lord of Shadowed Star, you should be able to tell, yes?" Qian Tong asked after withdrawing his domain. Fei Jitu, Wei Guchang, and Dong Xianer were all confused as none of them noticed anything wrong with Qian Tong. From their perspective, Qian Tong seemed perfectly fine and his domain, once released, was as powerful as ever. "The world principles here are rejecting you," Yang Kai asked suspiciously with a look of shock in his eyes. "You really can tell?" Qian Tong sighed. "What?" Fei Jitu was shocked. "Old Ghost Qian is being rejected by Shadowed Star's world principles? How is that even possible?" "Nothing is impossible." Qian Tong smiled bitterly and shook his head. "If it weren't for my being rejected by the world principles here, do you think this old master would be struck by lightning for no apparent reason?" "You were struck by lightning, old Qian?" Yang Kai asked in surprise. Qian Tong nodded. Although I did not suffer much harm, the power of heavenly lightning is still not to be underestimated. Fei Zhitu's jaw dropped as he called out in alarm. I thought you were cultivating some kind of profound secret technique that triggered that lightning strike, so it was actually because of this. What nonsense secret technique? Qian Tong didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You know all of the secret techniques our Shadow Moon Hall possesses. Which one can possibly cause heavenly lightning? This old master has no time to cultivate any secret techniques now anyways. All my focus is on consolidating my realm. What about the earth fire last time? Dong Shenner asked from the side. What earth fire? Fei Zhitu asked in astonishment. Dong Shenner blinked her big eyes and explained. 2 months ago, a terrifying earth fire suddenly appeared in Honored Master's retreat and burned it to the ground. Such a thing happened? Fei Zhitu was surprised. That was also a result of this old master being rejected by Shadowed Star's world principles. Qian Tong grumbled in annoyance. Since this old master returned to Shadowed Star, he has encountered this kind of thing more than once. Although they have all been resolved by this old master, never causing any real damage, I also have no way to concentrate on cultivating. Not only that, when this old master flies, powerful astral winds sometimes emerge from the void and hammer my knowledge sea, draining my spiritual energy. This old master no longer dares to fly too high or for too long for fear of the consequences. Heavenly lightning, earth fire, astral wind. Yang Kai muttered aloud. Old Qian, it seems that life has been hard for you. Hearing Yang Kai's teasing, Qian Tong felt both aggrieved and helpless. Living constantly on edge was extremely uncomfortable. Fortunately, Qian Tong had not entered secluded retreat these days. If he was disturbed while in deep meditation, it would very likely lead to a dissonance in his cultivation. Once that happened, it would be difficult for him to emerge unscathed despite already reaching the Origin King realm. How could this be possible? Fei Zhitu had an incredulous expression on his face as his eyes flashed with surprise. This city lord has lived for hundreds of years, but this is the first time I have ever heard of anything like this. It is a first for this old master as well. Qian Tong sighed heavily before he directed an expectant look towards Yang Kai. Yang Kai, you are now Star Master of Shadowed Star. Can you figure out a way to remedy this old master's situation? Qian Tong was truly quite troubled not knowing when something like heavenly lightning or earth fire would befall him, making it impossible to enter retreat. Now all he could hope for was that Yang Kai had a solution. But to his great disappointment, Yang Kai could only slowly shake his head. While I can communicate with the world principles of Shadowed Star somewhat, it is still impossible for me to alter them in any way. Hearing this, Qian Tong released another sigh. The hall went silent for a while as the expressions of everyone present became heavy. Shadow Moon Hall now possessed the only Origin King on Shadowed Star, which was no doubt a glorious achievement. But with Qian Tong now being rejected by the world principles, it was terrible news. After a while, Qian Tong suddenly said, It seems that the only way now is for this old master to leave. Old Ghost Qian, are you planning to leave Shadowed Star? Fei Zhitu was shocked. Wei Guchang and Dong Shenner also looked at Qian Tong with dismay, seemingly wanting to say something to dissuade him, but uncertain where to start from. If this old master doesn't leave, he will face troubles for the rest of his life and will be unable to cultivate again. Qian Tong smiled lightly. This old master finally managed to reach the Origin King realm, so he does not want to remain stuck here forever. This old master still wants to reach greater heights and see broader horizons. At your age, you still haven't outgrown such ambitions? Fei Zhitu smiled wryly. Old Fei, are you willing to remain in the Origin Returning realm for the rest of your life? Qian Tong asked back. Impossible, Fei Zhitu snorted. If not for the City Lord's realm falling last time, he would have left Shadowed Star together with you. Whether this City Lord can touch the mysteries of the Origin King realm or not, he must at least try. And people seek greater heights just as water flows to lower places. Since you've already decided, there's nothing more to say. You need not worry about Shadow Moon Hall. I will take care of it, Fei Zhitu said sternly. Yang Kai, if this old master wants to leave this place, He must rely on your strength. Qian Tong looked at Yang Kai. Naturally, that's not a problem. Yang Kai smiled slightly. Actually, I was just about to implement a plan that aligns quite well with old Qian's intentions. Oh, what plan? Qian Tong heard this and his eyes suddenly brightened. I am going to construct a cross-cultivation star space array. You mean an ultra-long distance space array that can connect one cultivation star to another? Qian Tong and Fei Zhitu exclaimed together, looking at Yang Kai with extreme shock. Yang Kai nodded. Shadowed Star has been closed off from the star field for long enough. It's time we were reconnected with the broader world. If this can be achieved, after a Shadowed Star cultivator reaches the peak of the Origin Realm, they can freely leave to explore the mysteries of the Origin King Realm. Qian Tong and Fei Zhitu remained silent for a long time, but their eyes were wide with shock. After a long while, Qian Tong asked nervously, "Can this really be achieved? We'll have to try to find out." Yang Kai chuckled. At the very least, I don't think there will be a problem arranging an appropriate space array. What if masters from other cultivation stars try to invade Shadowed Star via the space arrays you arrange? Wouldn't that pose a serious problem? Qian Tong showed a trace of worry. Haha, you don't have to concern yourself about that. Fei Zhitu laughed, taking out a few tokens with the character "Hi" on them from his space ring and explaining. Without one of these, it is impossible to use the space arrays arranged by Yang Kai. What is this? Qian Tong was puzzled. A transmission token. Fei Zhitu immediately explained, and after Qian Tong understood the purpose of these transmission tokens, he could not help nodding thoughtfully. Yang Kai, it seems like you've been planning this for some time now. Of course. Arranging space arrays across Shadowed Star was simply a way of practicing for this. Yang Kai smiled. His ultimate goal was to connect Shadowed Star with the star field. This was not just a whim, but something Yang Kai had been thinking about for some time now. Currently, it took far too long to reach the populated regions of the star field from Shadowed Star, but if a cross-cultivation star space array were available, this problem would cease to exist. In the current High Heaven sect, there was more than one peak third-order origin returning realm master, and as sect master, Yang Kai had to make plans for the future. Even he himself was a third-order origin returning realm cultivator and urgently needed to leave Shadowed Star to prepare to break through to the Origin King realm. What's more, arranging space arrays allowed Yang Kai to cultivate his space force. These days, he found that his comprehension of the Tao of space had become more profound. Naturally, Yang Kai was not about to abandon such a beneficial project. Great! This old master can rest assured knowing you've thought this matter out so thoroughly. You becoming Star Master is a true blessing to Shadowed Star. Qian Tong laughed. Then do you want to leave with me now or wait until I finish setting up the space array before departing? Yang Kai asked. Qian Tong thought about it for a while before saying, "This old master will remain on Shadowed Star for a while and leave after you've finished setting up the space array. There are still some things to deal with in Shadow Moon Hall after all. Look forward to good news soon." Yang Kai smiled lightly. Finished with his business, Yang Kai did not remain in Heavenly Fate City for a long time and instead returned directly to High Heaven Sect. After summoning elders of the sect, Yang Kai informed them about his next plan, causing Yi Shiyun, Yang Xiuzhu, and all the others to excitedly agree. Needless to say, Yi Shiyun was the one who most hoped to break through to the Origin King realm on Shadowed Star. Last time, she had chosen to remain in High Heaven Sect to take care of Yang Yen, causing her to miss such an opportunity. If Yang Kai could really set up space arrays on other cultivation stars though, she would be able to free herself from the shackles of Shadowed Star anytime she wanted. Yang Xiuzhu and the others also held similar mindsets. Last time, they had failed to break through after surviving the blood prison trial, but that did not mean they did not still have a chance. All of them intended to strive for a breakthrough, and even if they failed, they would not regret trying. Since everyone agrees, this sect master will implement his plan. Yang Kai grinned and looked around. But before I begin, I need you to help me gather some supplies. What supplies? Yi Shiyun asked. Space spirit crystals. Yang Kai's expression became solemn. The most critical material for arranging space arrays is space spirit crystal. Depending on the transmission distance between two space arrays, the number of space spirit crystals required also varies, and for cross-cultivation star space arrays, the more space spirit crystals, the better. Understood. I'll handle it. Yi Shiyun nodded. Now that high heaven sect influence had spread across all of Shadowed Star, it was not an issue for it to collect materials. The only question now was how many space spirit crystals high heaven sect could purchase. After all, space spirit crystals were rare, and even if some were found occasionally, it would almost always quickly be used to refine space rings. Xianxia had a large amount of space spirit crystal before which he collected from the lode under Dragon Cave Mountain, but after cultivating his space force with it for so long, he had used all his reserves up. During these past few months, the space spirit crystals Xianxia had used to arrange space arrays on Shadowed Star had been sourced from the major sects and cities he had visited. 3 months. In 3 months I will leave Shadowed Star. I hope you can help me raise enough space spirit crystal by then. Yes. The elders nodded before quickly scattering, intending to contact the various forces on Shadowed Star to begin this mass purchase. Xianxia believed that after 3 months, a big harvest should be waiting for him. While the elders of High Heaven sect bustled about, Xianxia now found himself with some idle time. After spending a few days accompanying his parents and brothers, he then took Su Yan and Xianxia out to wander around Shadowed Star. Xianxia didn't know when he would next have free time, so he naturally hoped to accompany his 2 senior sisters for the next 3 months and enjoy their company. To Xianxia, this was a simple but treasured luxury. Is this Grand Crystal Mountain Range where Colored Glass Sect is located? Su Yan asked as she looked around at the rolling hills below. Xianxia standing next to her nodded, releasing his divine sense and, with the assistance of his powers as Star Master, swept the mountain ranges several tens of thousands of kilometers. Smiling, he continued, "It looks like Colored Glass Sect's headquarters didn't suffer too much damage during the corpse spirit religion chaos. It still looks quite similar to when I last came here." Xianxia looked into the distance and said softly, "The world energy on the Shadowed Star is really not comparable to Tong Xian Realm. Every place we've traveled these days, whether in terms of aura or scenery, is far better than Tong Xian Realm." Saying so, she looked a little sad. Xianxia was Shadowed Star's Star Master while she was the Star Master of Tong Xian Realm. For every Star Master, the cultivation star that they refined the star source of was like the closest of partners, like their own child. Tong Xian Realm's withered aura made Xianxia somewhat depressed. Star Master and Cultivation Star are closely related. Little senior sister, you only need to work hard to improve your cultivation, and Tong Xian Realm will be rejuvenated one day. Xianxia comforted. Xianxia nodded. Let's go. Sect Master Gong should have received word of our arrival already. Xianxia held the 2 women's hands as he led them forward. It had been almost 3 months since they started wandering Shadowed Star. Over the past 3 months, Xianxia's trio had visited almost all the famous spots on Shadowed Star and experienced all kinds of local customs and traditions. The waves on the limitless ocean were magnificent while the silence of the vast deserts was breathtaking. Many famous mountains and rivers now bore the footprints of these 3. This 3-month-long journey would surely become one of the most beautiful memories in the hearts of the trio. Colored Glass Sect was the last stop set by Xianxia. Xianxia's reason for coming here wasn't actually to sightsee though, but rather to ask Gong Ao Fu for something. Although Gong Ao Fu had led Colored Glass Sect survivors to join High Heaven Sect during the Corpse Spirit Religion War, and she herself became one of the elders of High Heaven Sect. After Corpse Spirit Religion was destroyed, Xianxia had allowed Gong Ao Fu to return to Grand Crystal Mountain Range. He knew better than anyone just how meaningful one's ancestral heritage was to a cultivator. Just like how he built a sect on Shadowed Star called High Heaven Sect, even if Gong Ao Fu stayed in High Heaven Sect, where there were better conditions for her own growth, she would never be able to forget Colored Glass Sect. Eventually, it would no doubt disturb her heart. What's more, when Gong Ao Fu joined High Heaven Sect, Xianxia had promised that he would allow her to rebuild Colored Glass Sect in the future. Allowing her to return was simply fulfilling his original promise. Gong Ao Fu was naturally extremely grateful, and although she led the cultivators of colored glass sect back to Grand Crystal Mountain Range, she had sworn an oath that colored glass sect would belong to High Heaven sect as a subordinate sect from now on. This was the first attached force High Heaven sect possessed. And it was a very powerful one at that. When Yang Kai arrived here with Su Yan and Xianing Chong, Gong Aofu was immediately notified. When the trio reached the main peak of colored glass sect, a dense group of people were assembled already, headed by a beautiful woman with a rich, mature style. Naturally, it was Gong Aofu. Dai Yuan still wore her pockmarked and pitted appearance, appearing extremely ugly, making Gong Aofu look all the more beautiful. Behind these two were the only remaining elders and elite disciples of colored glass sect, In Su Dai among them. Seeing Yang Kai land in front of them, the assembled group all solemnly saluted. Subordinate Gong Aofu greets sect master. Greets Madam sect masters. Gong Aofu said quickly. There are no outsiders here. Sect master Gong need not be so polite. Yang Kai waved his hand while Su Yan smiled at Gong Aofu, accepting the title of Madam sect master with confidence. Xia Ningchong, on the other hand, even with her veil, had obviously gone bright red, her delicate earlobes looking like they were on fire. After so many years, little senior sister was still just as shy and innocent as ever. Sister Dai Yuan, it's been a long time. Yang Kai turned to Dai Yuan next, and a knowing light flashed across his eyes. Others did not know what kind of face was hidden beneath her disfigured disguise, but Yang Kai did. Dai Yuan's figure was indeed exquisite, but her face was quite unappetizing, making it extremely difficult for people to have a good first impression of her. Yang Kai and Dai Yuan could not have lived in more different worlds. One was a dragon that soared through the sky, while the other was an ant crawling on the ground. As such, no one knew why Yang Kai cared so much about Dai Yuan. Facing Yang Kai's greetings, Dai Yuan just nodded slightly, not showing any particular enthusiasm. Gong Aofu smiled next to her and quickly said, I received word from Great Elder Yi that Sect Master has been wandering Shadowed Star for the past few months. Has Sect Master had any significant gains? We were simply touring the scenery. How could there be any gains? Yang Kai chuckled and shook his head. Sect Master and the two madams are perfectly matched. It seems walking hand in hand together was the biggest gain of the past 3 months. Yang Kai met eyes with both Su Yan and Xianing Chong, all three of them smiling at each other lightly. Although they knew that Gong Aofu was simply offering some light flattery, none of them were turned off by such words. However, I wonder why Sect Master has decided to visit my colored glass sect? If it is just to sightsee, then subordinate will quickly make proper arrangements. There are many picturesque sceneries in Grand Crystal Mountain Range. Unfortunately, that is not why I've come here today. Yang Kai shook his head. I came here to make a request. Please name it Sect Master. Gong Aofu smiled. If not for Sect Master's care, my colored glass sect would have ceased to exist long ago. Whatever Sect Master needs from my colored glass sect, we will be honored to prepare. Why act so politely? Seeing her comply so easily, Yang Kai nodded. Then I will be succinct. I came here to obtain some 1,000 illusion-colored glass. Your 1,000 illusion-colored glass mountain was not destroyed by corpse spirit religion, right? 1,000 illusion-colored glass? Gong Aofu raised her brow. 1,000 illusion-colored glass mountain is one of Shadowed Star's greatest treasures. The corpse spirit religion was unable to destroy it, but if Sect Master wants 1,000 illusion-colored glass, things might be a bit difficult. We have accumulated some colored glass sect over the years, but only 2 or 3 fists worth. I don't know if this is enough for Sect Master. Certainly not. Yang Kai failed to stifle his laughter. Then, shall I have Dai Yuan use her secret technique to collect some? Gong Aofu asked hesitantly. In colored glass sect, only Dai Yuan, who had cultivated the special secret technique, was able to extract and refine 1,000 illusion-colored glass. So even though colored glass sect possessed a great treasure like 1,000 illusion-colored glass mountain, it was unable to actually use it fully, a rather depressing situation. Disciple cannot mine much, but I believe Yang Kai has his own methods. Dai Yuan looked at Yang Kai elegantly. Impudence. Gong Ao Fu shouted as she turned her beautiful eyes towards Dai Yuan and declared majestically, "How dare you call sect master by his given name?" Although her tone was filled with the meaning of blame, Gong Ao Fu's attention was completely focused on Yang Kai. Noticing that Yang Kai did not seem to be angry, she immediately calmed down. "It's fine. I've known Sister Dai Yuan for a long time, so it's not a big deal for her to address me by name." Yang Kai laughed lightly. Dai Yuan, on the other hand, ground her teeth as she glared at Yang Kai angrily. Before Corpse Spirit Religion ravaged Shadowed Star, she and Yang Kai had been friends on equal footing, always addressing one another informally. But now, this sly fellow had leapt to become someone who could order her honored master around. Dai Yuan naturally felt very awkward. "Many thanks for sect master's understanding. Subordinate has been neglectful in teaching Dai Yuan." Gong Ao Fu bowed her head before quickly changing the topic. "Does sect master have a way to mine thousand illusion-colored glass?" Yang Kai nodded. "In that case, there's nothing more that needs to be discussed. Please feel free to take as much as what sect master wants. Even if we mine it ourselves, we don't actually have many uses for thousand illusion-colored glass mountain at the moment. Sect master, please come with me." Gong Ao Fu agreed immediately and led the way. Yang Kai, Su Yen, and Xianing Chong quickly followed. The cultivators of colored glass sect were also very curious about what method Yang Kai had to mine the thousand illusion-colored glass, so naturally, they followed along, eager to see what happened. "You fool!" In Su Dai watched the crowd fly away before getting close to Dai Yuan and muttering in frustration. "When sect master took the initiative to bring you to greet him, why did you just brush him off? Then what should I have done? Gone up and pushed myself onto him?" Dai Yuan cast her a dismissive glance. In Su Dai choked on her words for a moment before thinking about it and suddenly giggling. "If it was me, I would do just that. He is the strongest man on Shadowed Star, so there's no shame in actively trying to approach him. It may be as you say, but do you think you can compare to the two women beside him?" Dai Yuan shot In Su Dai a contemptuous look. In Su Dai gawked as she recalled the demeanor and appearance of Su Yen and Xianing Chong, a sense of inferiority instantly welling up inside her. Su Yen was wrapped in a cold aura that, while invisible, was extremely strong, giving her great pressure. With Su Yen standing there, In Su Dai could not work up the courage to talk to Yang Kai. As for the other delicate, veiled woman, she had a holy and inviolable aura that made any woman who saw her feel inferior. "Who cares? I still have a chance as long as sect master is happy." In Su Dai coldly snorted. "I have no time to waste with you." Dai Yuan gave her a blank look before shaking her head and following after the crowd. "Stupid senior sister. Ugly woman." In Su Dai cursed as she pointed at Dai Yuan indignantly. Dai Yuan simply pretended not to hear anything. Thousand illusion-colored glass mountain was actually a single giant thousand illusion-colored glass, or it was extremely heavy and had a rather plain appearance, but it was a fact that this thousand illusion-colored glass was innately able to produce colored glass divine light. Colored glass divine light had a profound suppressive effect on all 5 elements, as well as the soul. The colored glass bead Dai Yuan gave Yang Kai many years ago was something she had formed after ingesting small bits of thousand illusion-colored glass over many years. It was similar to a monster beast's monster core. This colored glass bead had been refined by Yang Kai and integrated into his demon eye of annihilation, greatly enhancing its power. In addition, thousand illusion-colored glass had a mysterious ability to transform into a myriad of different forms. Rumor had it that if one used thousand illusion-colored glass to refine an artifact, that artifact could change into a variety of different forms when confronting an enemy, making it extremely difficult to defend against. The Origin King grade starship of High Heaven Sect was refined with a large amount of thousand illusion-colored glass, which not only greatly improved its defensive capabilities but also allowed it to disguise itself as a meteorite with the assistance of many profound spirit arrays. Only Yang Yen could possibly refine such a masterpiece. However, as no other artifact refiner in the star field was capable of refining so much thousand illusion-colored glass into the hull of a starship. In front of thousand illusion-colored glass mountain, with everyone watching, Yang Kai simply released Xiao Xiao and allowed him to mine at will. The stone puppet had an innate divine ability to devour all kinds of rare ores and refine them into the purest of essences. Since the thousand illusion-colored glass was technically a type of, or naturally the stone puppet had no difficulty with it. Even Domain's stone mountain in the blood prison was hollowed out by Xiao. So how could a mere thousand illusion-colored glass mountain resist his jaws? Under the astonished gazes of Gong Ao Fu and the others, Xiao quickly tottered up to thousand illusion-colored glass mountain, opened his mouth and began biting into it. Ka-ka-ka. Crunching sounds rang out as the stone puppet gnawed a hole into thousand illusion-colored glass mountain at a speed visible to the naked eye. Within moments, the thousand illusion-colored glass mountain, which had baffled colored glass sect for thousands of years, was missing a big piece. The cultivators of colored glass sect were dumbfounded. Soon, Xiao's whole body had penetrated into thousand illusion-colored glass mountain, and although no one could see how he was moving now, the continued crunching sounds clearly indicated that he was still swallowing a large amount of thousand illusion-colored glass. Sect Master. Does this living puppet really have such a magical ability? Gong Ao Fu exclaimed. She knew about the existence of Xiao. After all, during the Battle of Dragon Cave Mountain back then, she had witnessed him from a distance. However, at that time, the stone puppet was in his stone giant form and was waving around the heaven-shaking pillar. Gong Ao Fu never knew that in addition to its astonishing strength, the stone puppet could even easily eat thousand illusion-colored glass. He's a very special existence and has helped me a lot over the years, Xianxia answered casually, not bothering to explain and instead turned thoughtful as he said, I need a lot of thousand illusion-colored glass. Please help yourself, Sect Master. It doesn't matter even if you dig out all of thousand illusion-colored glass mountain. Gong Ao Fu took the initiative to express her stance before he finished speaking. It's nothing so exaggerated. Xianxia failed to stifle his laughter. This thousand illusion-colored glass mountain is not small. I only need about 1% of it. Even so, at the current rate, that should take 2 or 3 days. If Sect Master doesn't mind, why not spend some time on the main peak to rest first? After 2 days, we can come back here to check on your stone puppet's progress. Sure. Xianxia nodded. Gong Ao Fu personally led Xianxia, Su Yan, and Xianing Chong to the main peak where she immediately had the best palace prepared for them. She did not arrange a banquet for Xianxia because she knew he did not care for such things, simply instructing a few disciples to serve his trio diligently but not disturb him unless absolutely necessary. 3 days later, everything was in order. Xiao had swallowed thousand illusion-colored glass for the past 3 days straight, causing his belly to swell noticeably. Xianxia had him spit out the thousand illusion-colored glass immediately, and after storing it into a space ring, he bid farewell to Gong Ao Fu. Before leaving, he left some origin-grade artifacts for colored glass sect, as well as some origin-grade pills used for cultivation. This was a kind of compensation for him taking away so much thousand illusion-colored glass. Whether it was origin-grade artifacts or origin-grade pills, both were extremely rare and valuable on Shadowed Star. So Gong Ao Fu happily accepted them and brought all the elders and elite disciples to see Xianxia off. 10 days later, inside High Heaven Sect. In the main square outside the meeting hall, a brand new space array had been arranged by Xianxia. This space array was somewhat different from the ones Xianxia had arranged on Shadowed Star previously. The main difference was that it was much smaller while also possessing a more profound aura. This was a cross-cultivation star space array. This was the space array Xianxia would use to locate High Heaven Sect. Just like how he had done before with this space array in place, all Xianxia needed to do now was arrange another space array on a nearby star, and he would be able to create a two-way link between them. With this, High Heaven Sect now had 2 main space arrays. One was arranged outside High Heaven Sect to connect it with the rest of Shadowed Star, while the other was arranged inside the sect in preparation to connect with the rest of the star field. During the past 3 months, High Heaven Sect had devoted all its efforts and resources to collecting space spirit crystals for Xianxia, but had still only managed to gather 2,000 pieces. These space spirit crystals represented almost all of what was currently available on Shadowed Star, and unless some new space spirit crystal mineral lodes were discovered, there would likely be a shortage of them in the near future. However, according to Xianxia's calculations, These space spirit crystals would be enough to arrange 3 or 4 cross-cultivation star space arrays. After taking care of some last issues and bidding farewell to his family and friends, Xianxia once again visited the 6th layer of the flowing flame sand field and chatted with Yang Yen for a while before summoning his star shuttle and flying off into the starry sky. In High Heaven Sect, 10,000 people looked up into the sky to watch the departing light until it disappeared from sight. Be safe. Su Yan and Xia Chong stood atop different peaks as they shared the same silent wish in their hearts. Millions of kilometers from Shadowed Star, an invisible astral wind blew about recklessly, creating numerous big and small starry sky storms which crashed together, were worn down, and then gathered together over and over and over again. A vast and chaotically drifting asteroid sea which could rip apart any cultivator or starship who tried to break through it haphazardly also swirled about. This was the Great Barrier which isolated Shadowed Star. The cultivators of Shadowed Star called it the Dead Zone. Several million kilometers wide, this dead zone wrapped Shadowed Star in an all but impenetrable barrier that prevented anyone from leaving or arriving on Shadowed Star. If it was just these dangers, though, it would not be enough to stop Origin King Realm Masters from arriving here, and even if Shadowed Star was quite remote, there would always be an Origin King who was curious and visited over a 10,000-year period. However, the Dead Zone was also flooded with a certain power that even Origin King Realm Masters dreaded. Emperor Pressure. Only Emperor Pressure could deter Origin Kings from approaching. When Xianxia left Shadowed Star with Chen Tong and the others last time, he had relied on the powerful defenses of the Origin King Grade Starship to pass this region. But this time, he had come out alone and naturally left the Origin King Grade Starship behind in case some kind of accident occurred. As such, Xianxia was only able to rely on himself. He did not know how this dead zone was formed before, but after hearing about so many ancient secrets from Yang Yen, he clearly realized that this dead zone was the remains of the battlefield between Yang Yen and the Insect Emperor. That was why this place was still filled with Emperor Pressure and why it was so extremely dangerous. Fortunately, although the Emperor Pressure here was indeed terrifying, it was not the first time that Xianxia had experienced it. When the Emperor Garden had truly opened, Xianxia had even used the Emperor Pressure it released to integrate his space force into his Sure. In regards to withstanding Emperor Pressure, Xianxia was more confident than anyone. Rushing straight into the dead zone, Xianxia began dodging the flowing asteroids which came at him from all directions. The invisible star-field astral winds sliced past him like sharp blades, cutting into his flesh, causing a harsh metallic sound to ring out constantly. 5-colored light blossomed from Xianxia's figure suddenly, as he began using his 5 elements indestructible sword-tempering art to protect his body. With the constant use of Shadowed Heaven pills, Xianxia's physical strength had already grown to an unimaginable state. The invisible astral winds which could even force back an Origin King now could not even harm Xianxia, and the occasional asteroid which managed to hit him would break upon impact. Xianxia charged into fierce star-field storms without fear and was instantly swallowed up by it. Before long, Xianxia rushed out from the other side of the storm safe and sound. Cutting a path through all these obstacles, Xianxia's momentum was unstoppable. Xianxia was even able to leisurely feel the mysteries of the ambient Emperor Pressure that flooded this place. This was even more helpful to his growth than absorbing the energy inside domain stones. Xianxia's Sure had already reached the grand accomplishment stage, and his Saint Qi and spiritual energy had all reached the pinnacle of what an origin-returning realm master could possess. If not for him being suppressed by Shadowed Star's world principles, Xianxia could have already attempted to break through to the Origin King realm. As time passed slowly, his gains grew bigger and bigger. However, Xianxia soon discovered a problem. While it was indeed a rare opportunity to comprehend the Emperor Pressure inside the Dead Zone, he clearly felt that it was too profound for him to grasp, unlike the energy inside domain stones. After thinking about it for a while, Xianxia understood. He was currently at the peak of the Origin Returning Realm, with the next realm being the Origin King Realm. After the Origin King Realm, though, there was a higher realm, and above that was the realm where Yang Yen stood, the true owner of this Emperor Pressure. It was indeed a bit too ambitious to try to comprehend Emperor Pressure right now. Xianxia was like a child who had not yet learned to crawl trying to stand up and run. He was obviously somewhat incapable. It seemed that the best time to experience the mysteries of the Dead Zone would be after he reached the Origin King realm. Realizing this, Xianxia no longer wasted his time and rushed forward as fast as he could. With the star chart in his knowledge sea, Xianxia did not have to worry about getting lost in the vast star field. By using his star chart, Xianxia was also able to estimate the distances between different stars and shadowed star, allowing him to choose ideal places to arrange space arrays. Many days later, Xianxia landed on an icy dead star. There were countless dead stars in the star field, ones without world energy or even world principles. Perhaps after billions of years, some of the dead stars could evolve and give rise to life again, but such matters were too remote for mere cultivators to consider. However, most dead stars would remain barren and desolate from birth to destruction. After landing, Xianxia didn't immediately rest but instead began surveying the surrounding 300,000-kilometer region. After confirming that there were no living creatures here, he found a mountain valley-like area and began preparing to arrange the first space array. This space array would be a transfer point for Shadowed Star to contact the outside world, and was an indispensable strategic location. Xiaoxiao was released by Xianxia and allowed to roam around freely. Over the past year or so, Xianxia would occasionally land on some dead stars, and each time he would let Xiaoxiao out to explore and see if he could reap any gains. Xiaoxiao did not let him down either. With his extraordinary innate talent, Xiaoxiao was often able to find some rare ores. But the number was not too great. Nothing Xianxia took to heart, so he simply allowed Xiaoxiao to refine and absorb them himself. By absorbing the essence of these ores, Xiaoxiao was able to grow stronger. Xiaoxiao quickly disappeared from Xianxia's field of vision, after which, Xianxia took out various things from his space ring and began to arrange the space array. The mountain valley he chose was not small, and if one looked down from high up above, it would seem more like a giant trench dug into the dead star. Xianxia found a well-concealed spot near one of the rock walls and began to melt the various ores he had brought out, molding them into various parts of different sizes that he piled up nearby. These parts would comprise the base of the space array, and as long as they were completely refined and assembled appropriately, all Xianxia would need to do was use his space force to carve the spirit array into it and the space array would be complete. This was not Xianxia's first time performing this work. Before leaving Shadowed Star, he had personally arranged a cross-cultivation star space array, so this wasn't a difficult task for him. All it took was some time. There were no other people here to help him, so Xianxia had to handle everything on his own, which naturally meant it took a little longer. 15 days later, Xianxia had finished arranging the space array. With its small size and position beneath a rocky overhead, if one did not search for it carefully, it would not be discovered. However, if it were just this, the safety of this space array could not be guaranteed. As Xianxia poured his Saint Qi into the space array in front of him, it began to change color and soon blended in with the surrounding land. At first glance, this space array would only seem like another rock. One would need to closely examine it to notice anything out of the ordinary. Before leaving Shadowed Star, Xianxia had gone to Colored Glass Sect and collected a large amount of 1,000 illusion colored glass for exactly this purpose. All along, he intended to use the 1,000 illusion colored glass as one of the primary materials in the space array's base so he could conceal it like this. Although this was a dead star, who could guarantee that no cultivator would not come here? If this large, flat circle were spotted by a passerby, it would become troublesome. But it was a different story with the 1,000 illusion-colored glass. 1,000 illusion-colored glass could assume a myriad of different forms, so by refining it into the array base and adding a concealment spirit array, Xianxia was able to camouflage the space array almost perfectly. Furthermore, by adding 1,000 illusion-colored glass into the array base, the space array itself became much sturdier, so even if it were struck by a meteor or hit by a storm, it would not be damaged. After checking over his work and confirming everything was in order, Xianxia nodded in satisfaction. Done with the preparations, Xianxia then began to engrave the spirit array into the base before finally pouring his space force into it. The circular array quickly began to hum. Xianxia smiled. His expression was filled with joy. This slight movement meant that this space array had successfully connected with the one he arranged in High Heaven Sect, but whether it could teleport him there or not still needed to be tested and verified. Naturally, he was the only one who could perform these verification tests. As Xianxia was proficient in the Tao of space, he did not need to worry about something going wrong in the transmission process, as he could simply disrupt it or tear space to escape from the void. Summoning Xiao back with a thought, Xianxia stood there and waited quietly. Took a full day for Xiao to arrive. Quite a long time, all things considered. If it was not for the special soul connection between Xianxia and Xiao, allowing the former to know the latter was safe, Xianxia might have thought an accident had befallen Xiao. Xianxia glared at Xiao and was about to reprimand him when suddenly his gaze froze on the latter's belly. Xiao's belly was actually completely round, and at a glance, it was obvious this little fellow had swallowed a massive amount of, or over the past half a month. If this weren't the case, considering Xiao's almost bottomless stomach, this would have been impossible. Xianxia was naturally quite surprised. During his one-year journey, Xianxia had landed on many dead stars, all of which had been extremely barren. Some of these dead stars did not even have a single thing of value on them. However, seeing Xiao gain so many ores from this dead star, it was obvious that despite lacking any kind of world energy, this place was definitely rich in ore. Additionally, the grade of the ore the current Xiao would take interest in was not low. "Spit it out and let me see," Xianxia said to Xiao. Xiao scratched his head slightly, then opened his mouth and began spitting out a stream of, or without hesitation. These ores were different in size, shape, and color, and continued to pile higher and higher until it gradually formed a small hill. After spitting out its haul, Xiao patted his now flat belly with an innocent expression on his face. "This is..." Xianxia's eyes lit up as he stared at the mountain of ore in front of him. Picking up a washbasin-sized piece of silver ore, Xianxia examined it with his divine sense and quickly muttered, "Heaven-seeking silver?" Xianxia was no longer a naive backwater boy. After so many years of experience wandering the star field, his vision had become quite sharp and his knowledge was now quite deep. He did not dare claim he would recognize all the materials in the star field at a glance, but at the very least he could identify most of them. This washbasin-sized silver ore was obviously the origin-grade high-rank heaven-seeking silver. If a small amount of this was added to an artifact while it was being refined, it could greatly improve the elasticity of that artifact, making it much more difficult to damage during battle. Heaven-seeking silver was an extraordinary auxiliary material that could be added to almost any kind of artifact, a universally useful material. If a cultivator possessed an artifact which was extremely valuable to them, they would often try to find materials that could enhance their quality, often leading to fierce competitions. Heaven-seeking silver was such a material, and its value wasn't low. An egg-sized piece of heaven-seeking silver would sell for at least 100,000 high-rank Saint crystals. In other words, this washbasin-sized heaven-seeking silver lump was worth at least several million Saint crystals. Xianxia had not even recovered from his surprise when his eyes were next attracted to a big piece of, or which was emitting a golden glow. Profound star essence. 5-colored sand. Blue phoenix tier iron. So many Saint crystals? Xianxia checked through the hill of ore and was repeatedly stunned by the great harvest Xiao had reaped this past half-month. Quickly estimating the value of this pile of ore in front of him, Xianxia was shocked to discover that Xiao's half-month of work was almost equivalent to the value of an entire medium-sized sect on Shadowed Star. The ores in front of him were all excellent materials for refining artifacts, and some were even Origin King grade. What Xianxia was most confused by, though, was the massive quantity of Saint crystals Xiao had brought back. It was at least somewhat understandable that this dead star had a great deal of precious ore, but without world energy, how could Saint crystals possibly be produced here? Saint crystals were generally only formed on cultivation stars where there was rich world energy and should never appear on dead stars. Xianxia's eyes flickered as two completely different guesses came to his mind. Without hesitation, he pointed at the pile of ores in front of him and asked Xiao, "Where did you find these?" "Led me there." Xiao immediately used his hands and feet to scamper across the ground in a certain direction. 10,000 kilometers away from the mountain valley where Xianxia arranged the space array, there was a giant pit which Xiao jumped down into. Xianxia followed closely. Before setting up the space array, Yang Kai had surveyed the surrounding 300,000-kilometer region, and though he had noticed this giant pit, he hadn't cared about it at the time. Xiao had obviously found something good inside of it though. This pit was very deep, and as he descended it, Yang Kai was assaulted by loud gusts of wind. Of course, this was not a problem for Yang Kai, and he ignored it while releasing his divine sense to probe the situation down below, getting a good picture despite it being pitch black. After descending roughly 3,000 meters, Yang Kai's landed at the bottom of the cave. Standing firm, Yang Kai began expanding his divine sense outwards. After a brief investigation, he was immediately shocked. This underground space was not a small, empty cavern like he had expected, but actually a massive subterranean space that even his divine sense couldn't completely cover. The air here was a bit dry, but it was not difficult to breathe, and under Yang Kai's divine sense investigation, he surprisingly discovered a large number of broken and collapsed buildings nearby that seemed to extend outwards for a great distance. It turned out to be a giant ruin, and judging from the style of these buildings, it was obvious that they were relics from a very distant era, at least several tens of thousands of years ago. From the layout of these ruins, it was also clear that it was once the headquarters of a great sect. I see. Although Yang Kai's expression displayed shock, his heart remained quite calm. All of this was like what he had guessed. After discovering that Xiao had brought back a lot of Saint crystals, Yang Kai came up with two possible explanations. One possibility was that this dead star was remarkably close to forming its own world principles. If that was the case, then while there would be no signs on the outside of the dead star, Saint crystals could still be produced below ground. These Saint crystals would exude aura for countless years to come, filling the dead star with world energy and eventually allowing life to evolve. This was the process by which a dead star evolved into a cultivation star. Such a dead star could be regarded as a newborn among the stars. However, Yang Kai had not discovered a single induction that world principles were forming here. As such, this possibility was quite remote. Yang Kai's second guess, and the one he thought most likely, was that this dead star was not dead a very long time ago, but a real cultivation star. However, due to some kind of change, the world principles had collapsed, and its aura had dispersed, turning it into what it was now. Tongxian realm may have gone down this path to becoming a dead star after several tens of thousands of years if there was no outside intervention. All things were born, grew old, and then died. Stars were no exception. Although Yang Kai did not know what caused this star to become a dead star, he could tell from the materials brought back by Xiao that this place was obviously rich in resources and had a beautiful scenery long ago. The ruins in front of him were also clearly a great sect's headquarters. A beckoning sound from nearby interrupted Yang Kai's train of thought, and turning to look, he saw Xiao motioning him to follow. Yang Kai nodded lightly and with a flicker chased after him. Along the way, Yang Kai was mindful of his surroundings, but soon discovered that his caution was unnecessary. Because there was no world energy aura here, even if there were intact spirit arrays in these ruins, they could not activate. In other words, this ruin was perfectly safe. Soon after, Xiao brought Yang Kai to a large storehouse where a massive amount of ore was piled up along with many jade bottles and some other miscellaneous items. The contents of the jade bottles were obviously pills. Yang Kai picked up a few jade bottles to investigate but found that all the pills here had lost all their efficacy and crumbled into ashes, so he no longer bothered with them. There were also traces of withered herbs that had also lost their medicinal properties many years ago and become little more than garbage. There was a large amount of Saint crystals here as well, but these Saint crystals had basically lost all their internal energy due to improper preservation. The Saint crystals devoured by Xiao were probably the only useful ones left. Inside this storehouse, the only thing of value that remained was the ore. Ores were durable, and even if they were not preserved in a special way, their properties would not degrade. Inside the storehouse, there was still several times more ore than had been consumed by Xiao, all of which was rare and valuable. Yang Kai stretched out his hand and collected all the ore into his space ring with a wave before bringing Xiao to continue exploring the area. A day later, Yang Kai had made a sweep of the entire ruin. Unfortunately, Yang Kai did not have any more gains, as everything of value was probably stored in that storehouse. Even space rings, which he found on some remains, had collapsed due to the lack of world energy support, destroying everything inside of them. However, Xianxia did discover that, in this massive underground space, this ancient ruin was only the tip of the iceberg. This underground region was like an entire expansive world. Its area was extraordinarily vast. Xianxia decided to do some exploration. After leaving the ruins, Xianxia flew forward for only half a day before he came to a desolate mountain range that was pocketed with countless tunnels that appeared to be mineshafts. After arriving here, Xiao, who had been following Xianxia the whole time, showed an expression of eagerness, as if he was very interested in the interior of this mountain range. "Are there more ores in here?" Xianxia turned his head and asked. Stone puppets were particularly sensitive to ore, and the more valuable the ore, the more it stimulated their appetite. Just like how wolves were sensitive to the smell of meat, stone puppets had a unique sense for ore. Hearing Xianxia questioning, Xiao nodded quickly. "Then we should go take a look." Xianxia laughed before stretching out his hand, wrapping Xiao up in his Saint Chi, and rushing into the mountain range. Soon, Xianxia's voice rang out from one of the mines. "An annihilation crystal lode." Sure enough, there was a mineral lode here, and of the extremely rare annihilation crystal. Annihilation crystal could not be used to refine artifacts because it naturally repelled world energy, like fire and water. If it were used to refine artifacts, no one would be able to use them. However, this ore was still extremely precious. Because it naturally repelled world energy, it could be used to arrange certain types of spirit arrays. A spirit array arranged with annihilation crystal could suppress a cultivator's Saint Chi, meaning that if one were trapped inside, they could only rely on their physical strength to survive, just like on Shadowed Soul Island. The famous Annihilation Isolation Array required Annihilation Crystal for its array core. Without being able to use Saint Chi or artifacts, could a cultivator really still be called a cultivator? The residents of Shadowed Soul Island used Shadowed Heaven pills to temper their bodies so they could survive in that place, but not every cultivator had access to things like Shadowed Heaven pills, and not every cultivator would focus on body tempering. The Annihilation Isolation Array was a deadly trap for almost all cultivators. Even origin kings who fell into it would find themselves in great difficulty. Although this spirit array was indeed quite powerful, Annihilation Crystal was extremely rare and difficult to find. However, there was actually an Annihilation Crystal lode here, and judging from the exposed crystals dotting the mine walls, it was a rich mineral lode. Mineral lodes could be roughly divided into third categories: rich, ordinary, and poor. Each category had its own standard. Generally speaking, a mineral lode that had reached the rich grade could be mined at will, making it a resource of extraordinary value as well as one that was extremely rare. Xianxia did not expect that he would actually find a rich annihilation crystal lode here. Xiao had already rushed forward and was swallowing down pieces of ore rapidly, taking a large amount of annihilation crystal into his belly. Xianxia also did not hesitate, rushing forward and joining in the mining efforts. Although this place was affected by the annihilation crystal ore, making it difficult for Xianxia to use his Saint Chi, with his intrepid physical strength, his mining speed was only a little slower than Xiao's. In less than a day, Xianxia had mined at least 500 pieces of annihilation crystal. As for how much had been swallowed by Xiao, that was impossible to calculate. 500 annihilation crystals were enough to set up a spirit array covering an entire small sect. Of course, no sect would be stupid enough to do this, because if they did, no one would be able to cultivate inside its perimeter anymore. Without being able to sense world energy, how was one supposed to cultivate? Annihilation Crystal was most suited for arranging spirit arrays in some special locations, such as restricted areas or traps. Despite Xiao and Xianxia's wanton mining though, this mineral lode did not seem to have decreased in supply at all. Releasing his divine sense, Xianxia could not help but sigh. Him wanting to mine this place fully by himself was simply unrealistic. He would have to delay his efforts here for several years in order to finish such a project. After grumbling for a moment, Xianxia ceased his efforts and recalled Xiao before diving further into the mountain range to explore. Another day later, under the guidance of Xiao's sharp senses, Yang Kai came to another mountain range, and after examining the situation inside of it, Yang Kai could not help calling out in surprise, "Heaven-grasping jade!" This place turned out to contain a heaven-grasping jade lode. Or that could nourish one's soul. Heaven-grasping jade was a very special type of jade that had a deep green color. Once stimulated with enough Saint Chi or world energy, this jade released a soft energy that could nourish one's soul and strengthen their spiritual energy. This was a natural process somewhat similar to the effects of Yang Kai's seven-colored soul-warming lotus, but it was far less effective. The soul-warming lotus could exist inside a cultivator's knowledge sea and constantly nourish their soul. The reason Yang Kai's soul was so much stronger than average was because it had received the nourishment of the soul-warming lotus for so many years. However, the soul-warming lotus was an incredibly rare supreme treasure, so how could it possibly be obtained easily? This was a treasure that even origin kings would covet. Heaven-grasping jade was different. Even though it was far less effective than the soul-warming lotus, that did not make it any less valuable, as it was the best material for gently enhancing one's soul. Heaven-grasping jade would appear on the market occasionally, but each time it did there would be a mad scramble to obtain it. Heaven-grasping jade was an incredibly valuable cultivation material, but here, there was a mineral lode of heaven-grasping jade. Judging from the scattered green light, this heaven-grasping jade lode wasn't too rich, but it was also not barren, firmly placing it into the normal mineral lode category. While Yang Kai was stunned, Xiao had already begun to devour the nearby heaven-grasping jade. Yang Kai also quickly collected 100 or so pieces of heaven-grasping jade before stopping and bringing Xiao to continue his exploration. He faintly felt that this dead star he had accidentally landed on was a massive, untapped source of wealth. 3 days later, Yang Kai found a blue phoenix tier iron lode. 1 month later, Yang Kai had discovered a total of 8 mineral lodes, with one of them being a Saint Crystal lode. He did not continue to explore at this point, as after a month he had vaguely understood that this dead star was actually once an star. Each cultivation star had its own world principles, and these world principles were all roughly the same, but there were still some subtle differences. These differences would lead to vastly different materials being produced on that cultivation star. Some stars were better suited to growing herbs, resulting in them being classified as medicine stars. On a medicine star, a herb which normally took 100 years to reach maturity may only take 50, 30, or even just 10 years to mature. Other stars naturally formed ores at a higher frequency than average. These stars were known as stars. On an star, there would be a dazzling variety of rare and precious ores in rich quantities. In the star field, the most powerful forces all controlled a certain number of stars and medicine stars. For example, the Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce that Xueyu belonged to had more than one star and medicine star. It was precisely because of this kind of heritage that Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce was able to do business throughout the entire star field and become so famous and powerful. This dead star that Yang Kai stumbled upon was undoubtedly an star, and judging from the quantity and quality of the mineral lodes he had discovered so far, even amongst stars, this star was considered superior. Right now, what needed to be done was to develop this place. If High Heaven Sect could control this star, how could it not grow strong in the future? Yang Kai's heart pounded slightly faster as he became excited at such prospects. Without any hesitation, Yang Kai immediately began to set up a space array just outside the location of the St. Crystal lode he was at to connect with the one he had arranged in the mountain valley on the surface. Because this was not a cross-cultivation star space array, Yang Kai only needed about a day to complete it, and after standing on it, he inserted enough Saint Crystals to activate it and teleported back to the mountain valley on the surface. Without delay, Yang Kai took out another batch of Saint Crystals and inserted them into the cross-cultivation star space array at his feet, locked onto the light in the distance of the void that represented Shadowed Star, and activated the array. When Yang Kai returned to 100 Flowers Peak, Yi Shiyun, who was instructing the little Lin Yuner, was stunned for a moment. Before he could say anything, she asked suspiciously, "Sect Master, why have you returned so soon? Did you encounter some kind of danger?" Her surprise was understandable. After all, the last time Yang Kai left Shadowed Star, he had been gone for 8 years. From Yang Xiuzhu and the others, Yi Shiyun had learned just how remote Shadowed Star was and understood that simply traveling to a nearby cultivation star took well over a year. But now, only a year later, Xianxia had returned to Shadowed Star. Why would he return so quickly this time? I found an star, Xianxia said concisely, and while answering Yi Shiyun's words, he swept Lin Yuner with his divine sense. Xianxia was shocked to discover that this little girl, who possessed the tyrant strength body and was only about 15 years old, had physical vitality rivaling an ordinary origin-returning realm master who had lived for hundreds of years. Although her petite body still looked delicate and weak, the strength contained within it was impossible to ignore. Compared with the last time Xianxia saw her outside Clear Sky Sec's Black Sea City, Lin Yuner had grown slightly taller, and her body had begun to acquire some slight curves while her legs had become longer and slender. Her hair was tied up in a bun behind her head, giving her a heroic look. Seeing Xianxia staring at her, Lin Yuner smartly greeted him as Uncle Sect Master. Xianxia nodded gently in response. N or star? Yi Shiyun's eyes lit up. Although she had lived her whole life on Shadowed Star and had never seen the wonders of the star field for herself, that did not mean Yi Shiyun was unaware of what discovering N or star meant. N or star represented wealth, power, and bright future prospects, especially for a sect. A rich or star? Yi Shiyun asked with interest. Very rich. Rich beyond your imagination. Xianxia replied seriously. I only explored it for a month and already found 8 mineral lodes ranging from rich to poor, including an annihilation crystal lode, a blue phoenix tier iron lode, a heaven-grasping jade lode, a mountain-piercing ice copper lode, a water cloud steel lode, and a saint crystal lode. So many. Yi Shiyun, who was normally extremely calm and composed, could not help feeling shocked by this piece of news Xianxia had brought back, her beautiful brow rising slightly as her long eyelashes fluttered. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, Xianxia emphasized. Are there any dangers? None. It's a dead star without any world energy. Xianxia laughed. If there was any discernible danger, I wouldn't have made a special trip back. I searched it for a month and I didn't even see a single living thing, let alone anything dangerous. Then Sect Master intends to. Yi Shiyun looked at Xianxia with bright eyes. Naturally, we need to deploy a large amount of manpower to begin mining it. Xianxia grinned. However, even for High Heaven Sect, that or star is too big to monopolize. Invite some of the sects that had good relationships with us and are reliable to share this news with to join us. Since it is Sect Master's orders, this queen will naturally not object, but although there are a few sects we can cooperate with on this project, we cannot just give them benefits in vain. We should allow them to mine the ore there, but have them pay 30 or 40% to High Heaven Sect as tax. Also, this will have to wait until after we establish a foothold there. Yeah. Great Elder's thoroughness is reassuring. Xianxia nodded. But Shadow Moon Hall? Shadow Moon Hall is naturally an exception. Yi Shiyun smiled. She also knew that the friendship between Xianxia and Qiantong has transcended mere profits and benefits. Great. I'll leave processing this matter in your hands. I'll refine some special transmission tokens as well to assist in the project. Xianxia finished speaking and left immediately. Because there was a need to bring many people to the Ore Star to mine at this time, special transmission tokens needed to be specially refined. It took some time for Xianxia to finish refining 50 special transmission tokens. This type of transmission token was different from the previous ones and could ensure that 50 people could pass through the space array arranged by Xianxia at once. Moreover, when Xianxia refined these transmission tokens, he also set up a spirit array inside that would only respond to his or Yi Shiyun's Saint Qi. This way, if one wanted to use this transmission token, they would first need Yi Shiyun to pour her Saint Qi into it. Although this method was a bit cumbersome, it could ensure safety and guarantee that if this transmission token ever fell into enemy hands, they would be unable to use it. Anyone who needed to use this transmission token must obtain Yi Shiyun's approval. These special transmission tokens were much more cumbersome to refine, so it took Xianxia 10 days to complete all 50. Once he was finished, Xianxia went to see Su Yan and Xianning Chang again. But surprisingly, both were in retreat. With no other alternative, Xianxia could only give up. In any case, after he completed the cross-cultivation star space array network, he could return to High Heaven Sect at any time, so he was not in a rush to disturb them. By now, Qian Tong had led a group of Shadow Moon Hall's elites to High Heaven Sect. He was obviously quite interested in the news from Yi Shiyun, so this time he brought 1,000 disciples with him. For Shadow Moon Hall, which was still in the process of rebuilding, these 1,000 people were actually quite a large number. After arriving at High Heaven Sect and listening to Xianxia explain the situation regarding the Dead Star, Qian Tong immediately said, "What are we waiting for then? We should rush over immediately. If we can mine all those rare ores, how could we not get rich?" Old Qian seems anxious to leave Shadowed Star. Xianxia looked at him with a smile. Qian Tong was stunned for a moment before he let out a hearty laugh. Indeed, this old master has been struck by lightning a few times these past few days. As time passes, the world principles here are repelling this old master more and more. This old master was originally worried about what he would do if you did not return for a dozen years. Now that there is such an opportunity, this old master is very eager to take it. Xianxia, you can rest assured, with this old master overseeing that or star temporarily, if any blind fools come along and try to cause trouble, this old master will take care of them. Since old Qian has said so, I really can rest assured. Xianxia nodded, stood up and waved. No point in delaying any longer. Let us set out. Before the cross-cultivation star space array inside High Heaven Sect, more than 2,000 cultivators had gathered. Among these 2,000 people, half belonged to Shadow Moon Hall while the rest belonged to High Heaven Sect. The cultivations of these people were varied, with most being Saint Kings while a few were Origin Realm Masters. While mining could be performed by Saints and Saint Kings without a problem, there would always be a need for some Masters for security. Teams of 50 people were quickly organized, with each team leader holding a transmission token given to them by Yi Shiyun. These groups took turns boarding the cross-cultivation star space array, with Qian Tong being in the first batch to explore the way and ensure there was no danger on the other side. White light flashed brilliantly as the space array continued to operate almost without pause. A stick of incense worth of time later, all 2,000 people had disappeared. On the cold and deserted Dead Star, 2,000 people appeared inside a deep mountain valley. Turning their heads and looking around, almost everyone felt a little nervous. For these 2,000 people, it was their first time experiencing the vastness and horror of the star field. This Dead Star, without world energy or living creatures, was quite a dark and foreboding environment for them. Seeing Xianxia appear with the last batch of people, Qian Tong rushed over and asked, "Is this the or star you spoke of?" It doesn't appear very bountiful." Qian Tong knit his brow. Xianxia laughed and said, "A dead star is naturally filled with a desolate aura, so of course it doesn't appear bountiful. The real mysteries are hidden here." Saying so, Xianxia lightly tapped his foot. "Underground. Come with me." Xianxia beckoned before leading the way. The team of 2,000 cultivators followed after Xianxia, remaining vigilant of their surroundings as they set out. However, after discovering that there was really nothing here to be wary of, everyone slowly relaxed. Without world energy, it was incredibly difficult for anything that could pose a threat to appear here. It took the team of 2,000 about an hour before they arrived at a giant pit which Xianxia promptly dove down into. The 2,000 cultivators orderly followed him down. Soon, everyone stood in front of an ancient ruin. Listening to Xianxia's various speculations about these ruins, Qian Tong and Yi Shiyun could not help sighing slightly. Birth, aging, sickness, and eventually death, such is the heavenly way that even stars could not escape. But if that was so, could cultivators defy that natural order? Perhaps they too would become just a handful of scattered ash after many years. Perhaps the now powerful High Heaven Sect and Shadow Moon Hall would one day fall into ruin and be forgotten by history. The expressions on these two leaders became somewhat complicated and forlorn when thinking about such a future. "My idea is this: we use this place to set up a camp, as there is already a site ready to be used here. All it needs is a bit of repair and tidying up. With this place as the center, everyone can spread out and explore, mine or then return here to rest and recuperate. What do you two think? Yang Kai asked as he pointed to the ruins before them. Very good. I don't have a problem with it. Qian Tong nodded. Great Elder. Yang Kai turned to Yi Shiyun. Naturally, I have no objections. But the building materials. Qian Tong frowned. Yi Shiyun laughed lightly and said with a smile, We've brought enough. Since Sect Master has had this idea for some time now, how could we not make appropriate preparations? Before we came, we had the disciples gather any necessary supplies. In that case, this old master will be profiting from your preparedness? Qian Tong laughed before turning around and shouting, Shadow Moon Hall disciples, assist your brothers and sisters from High Heaven Sect in building some houses here. This will be our temporary home. The 1,000 Shadow Moon Hall disciples voiced their understanding and got to work. The ruins, which had been abandoned for countless years, suddenly became lively again, with 2,000 people wandering about, setting up houses with the various materials they had brought. Meanwhile, Yang Kai began arranging a space array here. Since this would be their main camp, there was naturally a need for a space array here to contact the outside. Whether it was the cross-cultivation star space array in the mountain valley on the surface or the space array Yang Kai had left outside the St. Crystal Lode before, there was a need for this place to be connected to them. By doing this, it would be far more convenient for the disciples to make round trips while mining or saving much time and effort. 10 days later, inside the original ruins, there was now a cluster of newly built houses. Because this would be a long-term camp, the disciples of the two great forces had spared no effort in their construction. These houses were not exquisite in design, but they were extremely practical. Living in them would be just like living in their respective sects, except for the lacking of world energy. However, this was not a big problem. If one really wanted to cultivate, they simply needed to rely on St. Crystals. Along the roads of the former ruin, light stones were hung at regular intervals to provide a soft illumination, brightening up the originally dark and dreary space. Yang Kai had informed Qian Tong and Yi Shiyun about the locations of the 8 mineral lodes he had already found. As for how they were mined, Yang Kai did not need to concern himself. Qian Tong and Yi Shiyun would take charge of everything. If they needed more manpower, they could always bring people over from Shadowed Star at any time. Yang Kai had arranged everything for them. Not only that, once everything in the camp was in order and the disciples began mining operations, Yang Kai went out alone, and within a 10 million kilometer radius, he arranged several space arrays. Over the next several dozen years, these space arrays arranged by Yang Kai would allow the cultivators from Shadowed Star to move about easily within this range. 1 month later, Yang Kai was ready to leave. After all, his original intention was to open up a connection between Shadowed Star and the outside world. Finding this or star was just an inadvertent harvest. Now that things were settled on this or star, there was not any reason for Yang Kai to delay his trip further. Standing amidst the ruins, Yang Kai summoned Xiao back. Since arriving on this or star, Yang Kai had never taken Xiao back, because this place was a paradise for him. By devouring all kinds of rare ores, Xiao could strengthen himself, and if there was enough of a particular type of ore, Xiao might even be able to acquire new abilities related to their properties. His lava armor was a perfect example. This was an ability Xiao gained after refining some of the sun's true fire. As soon he donned his lava armor, no one could approach to within 10 meters of Xiao, as the heat he gave off was enough to force even Origin Realm Masters back. In any case, the resources on this or star were extremely abundant, so no matter how much Xiao swallowed, the overall amount would not decrease. As such, Yang Kai had left Xiao to his own devices. However, when he tried summoning Xiao, Yang Kai discovered that Xiao had dug extremely deep into the star, apparently having found something good. Perceiving Yang Kai's call, Xiao began tunneling his way back up from below. An hour later, Xiao appeared in front of Yang Kai. But with just a glance, Yang Kai could not help becoming worried, because Xiao's current state seemed somewhat improper. Xiao had always appeared a bit gruff and silly because his sentience simply was not very high, a trait that was reflected by his somewhat dull outward appearance. However, at this moment, he appeared even dimmer than before, with the intelligent glint in his eyes now severely diminished. When he walked about, Xiao staggered and swayed, as if he was drunk. Yang Kai was taken aback and instinctually thought that Xiao had swallowed something he should not have, causing some kind of accident. But after performing a thorough check, Yang Kai was surprised to find that nothing was wrong with Xiao. In fact, his physical condition had never been better. Additionally, Yang Kai sensed a strange, mysterious power coming from Xiao's body. This kind of power was familiar to Yang Kai, as it was like the world principles he felt as he refined the star source of Shadowed Star to become its star master. World principles? Yang Kai's complexion changed drastically as he quickly began investigating more carefully. After a long, silent probe, Yang Kai took back his divine sense and knitted his brow. He did not feel anything was wrong with Xiao, but it was also undeniable that he now gave off a trace of world principles from his body. This fluctuation was quite faint, though countless times weaker when compared to shadowed stars. However, world principles were still world principles, a concept that even origin kings were unable to touch. The question was now, how could Xiao suddenly begin giving off traces of heavenly law? After recalling all his previous experiences in search of an answer, Yang Kai's eyes lit up as a bold guess emerged in his heart. Did you swallow and refine the star source of this dead star? Did this dead star actually have a star source to begin with? Xiao raised his dim eyes and looked at Yang Kai with a blank expression for a while before raising his foot and began stumbling about before tripping over himself and falling to the ground, kicking up a cloud of dust. Yang Kai didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he realized that Xiao wasn't in any danger, but was simply unable to completely digest the power of the dead star's source, causing his control over his own strength to become unstable. Realizing this, Yang Kai simply took Xiao back into the sealed world bead. However, this entire situation was quite a surprise to Yang Kai. That this dead star still had its own star source was a shocking discovery. It should be impossible for a dead star to possess a star source because, without world energy, there simply could not be world principles, naturally meaning there was no way for a star source to be born. This was the same concept as a person dying and their body rotting, their essence disappearing, leaving behind only withered bones. However, there were always exceptions to the rules. According to Yang Kai's own previous speculations, this dead star was originally an extremely vibrant cultivation star that had for some reason died throughout thousands, if not millions of years. As such, some of its original source could have remained. Xiao had obviously dug deep underground and found the remains of this star source and swallowed it. This was a great blessing. If it was the star source of a true cultivation star, Xiao would never have been able to refine it. This kind of refining was completely different from the refining Yang Kai performed to become a star master. Star master and cultivation star were closely linked, sharing honor and disgrace. After Yang Kai became a star master, though, Shadowed Star's star source still existed. There was now just a mysterious connection between them that allowed Yang Kai to use many conveniences on Shadowed Star that others could not. Xiao, on the other hand, had directly swallowed and absorbed this place's star source, meaning it was gone forever and would not be completely converted into Xiao's strength. Various thoughts flashed through Yang Kai's head, making him more and more certain his guess was correct. Since Xiao was fine though, Yang Kai was no longer as worried about this. After talking to Chen Tong and Yi Shiyun, he departed from the Ore Star and continued his journey. Traversing the star field was desolate and lonely, especially in this region where there were no cultivation stars at all. Through his star chart, Yang Kai confirmed that the nearest cultivation star was at least a year away. Not becoming irritable or impatient, Yang Kai would sometimes travel under his own strength, while at other times he would land on an asteroid and cultivate while allowing it to carry him forward. Sometimes he would land on dead stars he came across to search for gains. However, dead stars were dead stars in the end, and despite searching a number of them, Yang Kai didn't have much of a harvest. Could be said that his discovery of that Ore Star was simply a stroke of luck. Such an accident was not going to happen a second time. That being said, Yang Kai arranged another cross-cultivation star space array on a certain dead star he passed by, connecting it with the previous one. During this period, Xiao had been asleep inside the sealed world bead, not moving at all. However, Yang Kai was aware that Xiao was now slowly releasing a thick, impurity-like casing from his body, forming a kind of stone cocoon around himself. This was quite similar to his original state as a stone embryo. Could stone puppets evolve? While Yang Kai was suspicious, he was also looking forward to it, wondering what kind of changes Xiao would experience after he emerged from the cocoon. After many days of cultivating, Yang Kai also faintly noticed a kind of barrier blocking his path forward. This was the barrier which separated him from the Origin King realm. Only by breaking through these shackles could Yang Kai reach the Origin King realm. At this time, if he could find a cultivation star and enter retreat for a year, or even half a year, Yang Kai was confident he could make a breakthrough attempt. One day, Yang Kai was performing a check on Xiao's condition. Because Xiao had not moved at all for the past year or so, Yang Kai would check in on him occasionally. This time, however, some faint fluctuations were coming from the cocoon, a clear sign Xiao was about to emerge from it. Joyful, Yang Kai immediately looked for a place to stay for a while to wait for Xiao to complete his evolution. After scanning his surroundings, Yang Kai rushed straight towards a nearby asteroid sea. This asteroid sea was quietly suspended in the void, with no signs of movement at all within or around it, the perfect place to enter retreat for a while. However, when Yang Kai approached the asteroid sea, he suddenly frowned. He noticed that several auras were trying to conceal themselves in this asteroid sea. Although these people were doing their best to remain hidden, it was obvious each one was a powerful Origin Realm master. It was only because Yang Kai's divine sense was much more powerful than average that he could notice this group. These people sneakily hiding here were obviously plotting something nefarious. Yang Kai felt his luck was quite bad, as he did not want to be caught up in this kind of turbid water, so he quickly turned around and left. However, his figure had only moved slightly when a brilliant glimmer flashed in the distance, transforming into a beam of light which shot out from behind one of the asteroids. A terrifying power radiated from the streak of light as it rapidly closed the several dozen kilometer distance between Yang Kai and the asteroid, causing him to feel a slight tightness on his skin. An Origin King. Yang Kai's face sank when he realized there was an Origin King Realm Master hidden in this asteroid sea. Even he had not noticed the presence of such a powerful master until just now. Although with his current strength, Yang Kai was already invincible under the Origin King realm, facing an Origin King still put a great deal of pressure onto him. Origin Kings and Origin Realm Masters were completely different existences, and there was a vast gap between them, which was why so many remained stuck at the third-order Origin returning realm their entire life, never able to spy on the mysteries of the Origin King realm. This hidden master suddenly making a move obviously indicated they intended to kill Yang Kai with a single blow. However, the master who took action greatly underestimated Yang Kai's strength. Faced with such a terrifying blow, Yang Kai let out a long roar, stretched out his hand, and weaved together hundreds of his golden blood threads to condense a great golden shield to protect himself. Honk! With a loud bang and a flash of golden light, Yang Kai was sent flying as he spat out a mouthful of blood. The sturdy shield he condensed from hundreds of golden blood threads had failed to completely block this blow, which shocked him greatly. However, at the moment of impact, Yang Kai was able to see clearly what he had been attacked by. It was a long spear over 3 meters in length and the thickness of a small child's arm, its whole form radiating a dazzling light and an extraordinary energy fluctuation. An Origin King grade artifact. Although the spear's main thrust was blocked by the blood shield Yang Kai condensed, the sharp aura it gave off was not completely dissipated and managed to pierce his body, making him feel as if he had been stabbed by countless tiny needles and causing his meridians and physique to ache while his face to distorted. With the cultivation of the person who launched the sneak attack and the terrifying power of this spear, an ordinary third-order Origin returning realm cultivator would have been killed instantly, but thanks to his strong foundation and form, Yang Kai was only slightly injured. From when he left Shadowed Star until now, this was the first encounter Yang Kai had with foreign cultivators, but he never expected that he would actually be attacked by an Origin King with an Origin King grade artifact. Yang Kai's heart filled with anger as he turned his head and glared towards the distant asteroid sea like a fierce beast before turning around and flying off into the distance, disappearing in the blink of an eye. After delivering its blow, The long spear which hit Yang Kai flew back the same way it came and landed in the hands of a middle-aged man standing on a huge asteroid. The middle-aged man had a sinister look about him and wore dark blue robes on his body. A gloomy aura pulsed from his figure, making none dare to approach within 10 meters of him. Holding his artifact, the middle-aged man showed a look of surprise on his face, as if he was shocked he could not kill Yang Kai. Interesting. Not only was he able to sense our presence, he even managed to survive after taking this king's attack. The middle-aged man smiled fiercely before glancing over in the direction Yang Kai escaped and asking, "Do any of you know who that was?" Around this man there stood at least 20 origin-returning realm masters, all of them above the second order. Hearing this question, these masters exchanged glances before all shaking their heads, indicating that none of them knew who Yang Kai was. "Since none of you know him, he must really be a passerby," the middle-aged man pondered for a moment before declaring. "But this matter is very important and there is no room for mistakes, so even if he was just passing by, we cannot let him go." "Sir, after taking your blow, will he survive?" someone asked. Just now, they all saw the attack this middle-aged man launched and none of them were confident they could take it without dying. Although the other party's origins were unknown, he was still just an origin realm cultivator in the end, so it should be impossible for him to live. It never hurts to be cautious. "Zhang Fu and Lu Dong, go bring his corpse back to this king," the middle-aged commanded, clearly thinking that Yang Kai surviving was simply a stroke of luck and he escaped on the verge of death. "Yes." Two third-order origin returning realm cultivators who were named immediately summoned their star shuttles and chased after the escaping Yang Kai. 30,000 kilometers away from where Yang Kai had been attacked, atop a drifting asteroid, Yang Kai sat cross-legged, watching the direction he had come from, waiting quietly. Although he did not know why that origin king had just attacked him, judging from how they were stealthily trying to conceal themselves, it was fairly obvious they were lying in ambush for someone. And even if Yang Kai had only passed by on accident, he might have disturbed their plans. In other words, the other party had attacked him in an attempt to silence the witness to the crime. That being the case, even if he tried to escape now, the other party would definitely not let him go. Yang Kai was certain someone would come to pursue him soon. It was precisely because of this judgment that Yang Kai had deliberately stopped and did not leave in a hurry. After inexplicably suffering such a big loss, how could Yang Kai simply walk away? Although the opponent's attack was terrifying, Yang Kai also noticed that the one who delivered it was just a first-order origin king. He had even killed Luo Hai, so why would he need to fear a mere first-order origin king? Although there was no Star Emperor token for Yang Kai to use anymore, even if he could not defeat this origin king, he would have no problem escaping. Luo Hai had chased Yang Kai for several months through the star field back then, causing him extreme distress but never capturing him. Could this unknown first-order origin king be faster or more powerful than Luo Hai? Yang Kai's guess was correct, and after waiting just half a cup of tea's time on this asteroid, two rays of light suddenly appeared in the distance. Judging from the brightness and speed of these streaks, the pursuers who had arrived were two third-order origin realm cultivators. A sarcastic smile appeared at the corner of Yang Kai's lips, but as his pursuers got closer, he quickly put that expression away and instead wore one of panic, hurriedly leapt up from the asteroid, summoned his star shuttle, and continued to fly forward. However, making the most of this act, Yang Kai deliberately moved at much less than his peak speed, pretending his injuries were not light and giving the appearance of an arrow at the end of its flight. When the two cultivators named Zhang Fu and Lu Dong saw this, they exchanged a knowing glance before following behind Yang Kai at a leisurely pace, intending to play a game of cat and mouse and enjoy this little distraction before killing him. Flying forward, Yang Kai would occasionally look back, as if he was afraid that he would be overtaken. This sight made Zhang Fu and Lu Dong even more unscrupulous, not only intentionally tailing behind Yang Kai instead of immediately attacking, but also repeatedly taunting and threatening him. After an hour, estimating that he had traveled far enough now, Yang Kai suddenly came to a stop, turned around and stood his ground. With a flash of light, Zhang Fu and Lu Dong appeared in front of Yang Kai and stood at a distance of about 300 meters, looking at him mockingly. The taller Zhang Fu swept his eyes over Yang Kai and snickered, "Boy, you're pretty good. Even after suffering a blow from Senior Li's soul-breaker spear, you didn't immediately die. This Zhang is impressed. Senior Li. Yang Kai frowned, his face pale and gloomy to the extreme, coughing frequently as he asked, I have no grievances with you. Why would your Senior Li attack me? Zhang Fu smiled coldly as he casually played with a ring-shaped artifact he was holding as he spoke lightly. We truly have no grievances or grudges between us. You can only blame your bad luck for passing through here. Heh. Senior Li hates it when his plans are interrupted the most. What plans? Yang Kai asked. Lu Dong, standing next to Zhang Fu, cut in impatiently. Brat, you're about to die. Why bother asking so many questions? It is precisely because I'm about to die that I'm asking, so at least I don't die ignorant. Yang Kai slowly shook his head. You want to understand why you're about to die? Zhang Fu looked at Yang Kai and sneered. Yes. It's not that I can't tell you. Zhang Fu said in a joking tone. But Lu Dong interrupted him before he finished. Enough nonsense. Just hurry up and kill him. It's important we bring his corpse back to Senior Li as quickly as possible. Fair enough. Zhang Fu nodded in agreement before he glanced towards the space ring on Yang Kai's hand. This brat was able to take Senior Li's strike without dying, so he can't be an average guy. There must be many good things on him. How about we split whatever is in his ring 50-50? Agreed. Lu Dong nodded. The two of them began deciding how to divide up Yang Kai's belongings before even finishing him off. In any case, Senior Li only said they needed to bring his corpse back. He never said anything about the treasures on him. Naturally, these items would line their pockets as they believed that with his status and strength, Senior Li would disdain to snatch them from them. You want my things? Yang Kai grinned slightly as he suddenly spoke in a cold tone. I'm afraid they'll cost you your lives. Insane brat. Lu Dong snorted coldly, but in the next moment, his complexion changed drastically, and his eyes bulged as he stared towards Yang Kai's original location, because no one was there. At some point, Yang Kai had mysteriously vanished. Suddenly Lu Dong felt a faint chill run across his neck, and he heard Zhang Fu's horrified shout ring in his ears. Brother Lu, dodge! Lu Dong was a third-order origin returning realm master, so the moment he noticed Yang Kai had disappeared, he realized something was not right. Hearing Zhang Fu's warning, he pushed his Saint Chi to its limits and tried to flee without any hesitation. But to his horror, the Saint Chi in his body was instantly suppressed by an astonishing Shi, causing not just him, but the space around him to completely freeze. Could such a powerful Shi really exist? Lu Dong felt his blood run cold as he desperately tried to push his own Shi to resist. This was a standard part of battle between Origin Realm Masters, where the difference in strength between their respective Shis ultimately determined who emerged victoriously. However, the reality in front of Lu Dong only made him more desperate. The Shi he released from his body was like a snowflake under the scorching sun, melting away in an instant, unable to even take shape. At that moment, he felt a chill come from his neck, and as he gazed down, he saw a headless corpse standing in the void, red blood spraying from its neck like a beautiful fountain. This person's clothes, figure, and even the ring on his hand looked so similar to his own. I'm already dead. Cold sweat leaked from Lu Dong's forehead as he faintly realized his situation. But soon darkness overtook him, swallowing his consciousness and vitality. Can you explain now? When Yang Kai reappeared, he was already standing just 10 meters in front of Zhang Fu, his complexion ruddy with no sign that he was injured at all. Staring at Zhang Fu coldly, Yang Kai played with a single golden blood thread at his fingertips that waved around like a living snake, looking for an opportunity to strike. Zhang Fu shuddered as he felt a cold chill from the soles of his feet to the top of his head, his spirit almost collapsing entirely. Lu Dong, whose strength equaled his own, was decapitated by this young man in a single instant. When it happened, Zhang Fu only saw a golden light flashing across Lu Dong's neck. He did not even see how Yang Kai moved. Did such a powerful origin realm cultivator exist in this world? Even if Senior Li wanted to kill them, he could not have done so this easily, right? Zhang Fu stood on the spot with a pale face as big beads of sweat dripped from his forehead and slid down his face. Your companion was a bit tactless, so he died. Yang Kai looked at Zhang Fu indifferently, without the slightest emotion in his eyes, making Zhang Fu sweat even more profusely. He wanted to escape but found that he couldn't muster the courage. He had a feeling that if he really tried to run, he would be the next one seeing his own decapitated body. I hope your answers can satisfy me. Yang Kai continued to put pressure on Zhang Fu as he observed his victim carefully. Zhang Fu's complexion was forlorn, and his eyes showed a clear light of fear. Pursing his dry lips, he asked, "If I tell you what you want to know, will you let me go? What do you think?" Yang Kai sneered. Zhang Fu's body trembled as he gathered his courage and said, "Since you won't let me go, why should I cooperate with you? Either way, I'll die. I can kill you quickly, so you won't even notice you died." Yang Kai smiled gently. This smile was like that of a reaper from hell, and Zhang Fu felt that this young man he was facing was scarier than Senior Li. "I need to think about it." Zhang Fu gulped hard as his eyes drifted about, obviously trying to find a way to escape. Yang Kai just observed with a smile for a moment before flicking his wrist, causing the golden thread at his fingertips to flicker. Zhang Fu saw this, screamed, and hurriedly tried to dodge. However, before he could dodge, a powerful shur wrapped him up, making it impossible for him to even move. Zhang Fu's eyes shrank as he looked down to find that the tips of his fingers on his left hand had been sheared off, as if they were sliced by some kind of extremely sharp blade, leaving a smooth wound that blood continued to splash out of. The pain of this injury was nothing for a battle-hardened Origin Realm master. But what frightened Zhang Fu was that he had no power to fight back in front of Yang Kai. Both of them were third-order Origin returning realm cultivators, but the other party was like an aloof god who could easily control his life or death. The golden light flashed again. Zhang Fu felt a twang of pain again as his left fingers were shaved down slightly more, the severed pieces drifting away slowly right before his eyes. The other party did not speak anymore and simply kept waving his hand, sending out the golden thread every once in a while. Another slice was taken, then another. Zhang Fu's left hand was slowly but surely cut away and soon disappeared altogether, leaving him with only a handless left arm. Yang Kai showed no intention of stopping though, and instead continued his task with meticulous precision, cutting off small pieces of Zhang Fu's left arm now that his hand was gone. What caused Zhang Fu to tremble though was that while this young man continued this slow torture, he spoke in a callous voice to explain what he was doing. "After cutting off your left arm, I will cut off your right, then your left leg, then your right leg. I believe that with your cultivation you won't die even after that, so I'll then begin cutting off parts of your body. But don't worry, I'll make sure you survive long enough to witness your heart being cut apart, so you understand exactly how you died." Zhang Fu could no longer hold back the panic in his heart and shouted, "Enough! Whatever you want to know, I'll tell you. Just stop." One death was not equal to another. Suffering slowly and dying painlessly were completely different concepts. Zhang Fu could not bear watching himself slowly be cut apart. Just thinking about such a scene made him shudder uncontrollably. Yang Kai paused and looked at him lightly before chuckling. "If you'd done this earlier, you could have avoided some pain. What was there to hesitate about?" Zhang Fu grit his teeth and spat. "The winner is the king. The loser is the villain. Just tell me what you want to know." "Good. Who are you?" Yang Kai went straight to the point. "We're from Sword Union." "Sword Union?" Yang Kai raised his brow. Sword Union was one of the star field's hegemons, a super force that controlled several cultivation stars. Although it was not as large as Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce, its strength was not to be underestimated. In fact, Yang Kai had some dealings with Sword Union's cultivators before, but that was many years ago. In the star field, in addition to Hung Luo Chamber of Commerce and Sword Union, there was another super force Purple Star, as well other significant players like Galaxy Ridge and Abandoned Lair, each one occupying their own territory, fighting amongst themselves for dominance. "Who are you trying to ambush by hiding here?" Yang Kai asked again. Zhang Fu's eyes flickered as his look became hesitant, but in the end, he grit his teeth and replied, "The one we're here to ambush is also from Sword Union. Yang Kai looked at him with a strange expression. Zhang Fu quickly explained, I'm not lying to you. The one we're here to ambush is our enemy. Although everyone belongs to Sword Union, there are different factions. Yang Kai nodded lightly. From the other person's eyes, Yang Kai could see that he wasn't lying and his explanation was also reasonable. For a great force such as Sword Union, its internal structure was naturally complicated and power struggles were inevitable. However, setting up an ambush like this seemed somewhat excessive. Explain in detail, Yang Kai asked, just to be safe. Since Zhang Fu had chosen to cooperate, naturally he did not try to hide anything and immediately told Yang Kai everything he knew. In Sword Union, there were apparently several different factions, but two dominated above the rest. One faction was led by the current Union Master, while the other was headed by the Vice Union Master. These two factions had been fighting one another for many years. The senior Li Zhangfu mentioned before, whose real name was Li Minghai, belonged to the Vice Union Master's faction. This time they were here to ambush the rising star of the Union Master's faction, the direct descendant of Sword Union's Union Master Gu Zongyun, Gu Jian Xian, a rising star. Even the descendant of your Union Master is actually worth dispatching an Origin King to ambush? Yang Kai looked at Zhang Fu in astonishment before pensively asking, What is it about this person that you are all so afraid of? Zhang Fu smiled bitterly. If it was just an ordinary Origin Realm Master, naturally we wouldn't need to pay him so much attention. But the young Union Master possesses the Universe Sword Body and has now reached the Third Order Origin Returning Realm. If he breaks through to the Origin King Realm, the Vice Union Master's faction will have no future, so we need to take advantage of this time, when he has no strong guardians, to take action. Your appearance disrupted Senior Li's plan, so he tried to kill you. Universe Sword Body? Yang Kai touched his chin. Some type of special constitution, isn't it? What's so terrifying about it? The young Union Master is only 60 years old this year yet, has already reached the Third Order Origin Returning Realm. What isn't terrifying about it? Zhang Fu said solemnly. I think your true age is also not very big, and your strength is quite good. But if you were to be facing our young Union Master, it's not certain who would win or lose. Really? Yang Kai chuckled. A cultivator who reached the Third Order Origin Returning Realm in less than 60 years was indeed a top talent. However, Yang Kai was only about 50, even younger than this Gu Jian Xian. When cultivators cultivated, they often did not notice the passage of time, so they didn't care much about age. If it's true what you say, then I am somewhat interested in your young Union Master. Yang Kai snickered. Zhang Fu swept his eyes over Yang Kai before nodding. People like you will collide with each other one day, creating great sparks, but that will all depend on the young Union Master escaping this tribulation alive. Good. Have I told you everything you want to know? Yang Kai nodded lightly at him. Then do it. Zhang Fu urged impatiently, but there were still no signs of Yang Kai acting. Instead, his consciousness just became blurred in the next moment. Sure enough, he did not even know what happened. Standing in place, Yang Kai took Zhang Fu and Lu Dong's space rings, then burned down their bodies with his demonic flames. Pondering for a moment, Yang Kai summoned his star shuttle again and flew back the way he came. He had not sought trouble, but that Li Minghai hadn't even said a word and tried to kill him for simply passing by. How could Yang Kai tolerate such an affront? After being beaten by someone, how could he not hit back? Yang Kai was planning on joining the fun. If he could find a chance to kill Li Minghai, that would be best. In the asteroid sea, the group of cultivators headed by Li Minghai waited quietly, like patient beasts ready to pounce. After a long time, though, someone frowned and said, Why haven't Zhang Fu and Lu Dong come back? With their skills, could they have failed? Did they encounter some kind of danger? Is there any danger around here? You don't want to say they were killed by that guy, do you? How could that be? That guy took a blow from Senior Li and was lucky to have even survived. How could he have the strength to fight against Zhang Fu and Lu Dong? However, it is strange they have not come back after so long. Should we go out and look for them? A man asked Li Minghai. No, if they cannot even handle such a simple matter, their lives are worthless. Do not act carelessly. Within a day or two the young Union Master starship will pass through here. Just wait quietly. Yes. After a brief conversation, the group of ambushers went silent, only occasionally glancing in a certain direction, looking forward to the arrival of the young Union Master's starship. This asteroid C was quite large, so it was easy to hide in. Otherwise, Li Minghai would not have chosen to ambush Gu Jian Xian's starship in this place. It was because it was so big that Yang Kai was not spotted when he snuck around and approached. At this moment, Yang Kai had gotten to within 100 kilometers of Li Minghai's group. He also hid behind a big asteroid and stared in the direction of Li Minghai with a cold expression. With his current strength, he could simply have charged forward and attacked. Even if he could not kill Li Minghai this way, it would not be a problem for him to kill a few of his subordinates and retreat calmly. But Yang Kai didn't choose this course of action. It was Li Minghai who injured him before, so he wanted to settle accounts with him personally. Yang Kai was also waiting for the young Union Master to arrive and for the two sides to fight so he could find an opportunity to launch his own sneak attack, repaying the earlier favor he received in kind. Somewhere in the asteroid sea, Yang Kai concealed both his figure and aura. He believed that it would be impossible for them to find any trace of him even if they were separated by just 100 kilometers and the opponent was an Origin King Realm Master. Taking the opportunity, Yang Kai inspected Xiao Zhao's condition again. It was because he noticed some changes in Xiao Zhao before that he thought about entering this asteroid sea to stop for a while, ultimately resulting in him being sneak attacked by Li Minghai. With some time on his hands now, Yang Kai naturally turned his attention to Xiao Zhao again. After a brief inspection, Yang Kai was overjoyed. The stone cocoon which had formed around Xiao Zhao now showed visible cracks, similar to the ones which appeared when he was first born. This was an obvious sign that Xiao Zhao was about to break out of his shell. It was not suitable to have him break out in the asteroid sea. Yang Kai didn't know if the stone puppet's evolution would cause any obvious signs. If he stayed here, it would only be discovered by Li Minghai and others. With no other choice, Yang Kai could only dive into the sealed world bead with Xiao Zhao. Since bringing the elites from the human, monster and demon races from Tongxian realm to High Heaven sect, the small sealed world had once again become vacant. Staring at the stone cocoon in front of him, Yang Kai waited quietly. Soon after, the stone cocoon made a cracking sound, and the existing fissures became bigger and denser. Finally, after cracks filled the entire stone cocoon surface, Xiao Zhao burst out of it. Xiao Zhao's body dexterously fell in front of Yang Kai. His eyes, which had been somewhat dull before, were now extremely bright, seeming to contain the light of wisdom. Discovering that Yang Kai was watching him, Xiao Zhao grinned, then stood there scratching his head with his knee-length arms. Yang Kai stroked his chin as he released his divine sense and scanned Xiao Zhao. Nothing changed. After a long while, he murmured with a suspicious look on his face. After this most recent evolution, Yang Kai had expected Xiao Zhao to experience some kind of radical change, but now it seemed his expectations were a little too high. Xiao Zhao did undergo some changes after swallowing so many rare ores on that dead star. After absorbing the essence of these ores, Xiao Zhao had become noticeably stronger. This was similar to how a cultivator would take pills used for cultivation, resulting in a definite increase in strength. But other than that, there did not seem to be any big changes. If there was anything, it was that Xiao Zhao's eyes had become nimbler, a clear sign his sentience had increased, but it had still not reached a remarkable level. "Show me your bigger form," Yang Kai commanded. Xiao Zhao immediately obeyed and transformed into his stone giant form, reaching 12 meters in height, giving off an awe-inspiring and oppressive air. "And your lava armor?" Yang Kai asked again. Xiao Zhao's surface instantly released flaming hot sun's true fire, creating a layer of flowing, terrifying magma around him. "Yeah, there are no noticeable changes." Yang Kai frowned as he felt he was failing to understand something. It was reasonable to think that after swallowing the remnant star source of that dead star, Xiao Zhao had obtained some great benefits. After all, after swallowing it, his reaction was extremely strong and even caused him to revert to a stone cocoon form. But the final result turned out to be so anticlimactic. Unable to understand it for the time being, Xianxia did not bother continuing to probe this matter. There was plenty of time in the future to study what had happened, so Xianxia simply commanded Xiao to resume his regular form and left him in the small sealed world. As soon as he returned to the asteroid he was hiding on before, Xianxia realized that something had changed. 100 kilometers away, Li Minghai's group had used some kind of secret technique to further conceal their auras, almost disappearing from Xianxia's perception. Additionally, in the distance, a starship was slowly approaching. This was the starship of Sword Union's young Union Master. This young Union Master had come rather quickly. No wonder Li Minghai had not hesitated to attack Xianxia. Obviously, the time before their plan was to start was very soon, and Li Minghai had not wanted there to be any accidents. In the end, though, not only had Li Minghai failed to kill Xianxia, he had also provoked a hidden enemy for himself. If Li Minghai knew this, it was not clear how he would react. Xianxia looked towards the location of the approaching starship and judged it would be at most an hour before the two parties met. Unable to stop himself from drawing a sharp breath, Xianxia waited in anticipation for a good show. As time passed little by little, the atmosphere in the huge asteroid sea seemed to become tense. Soon, Xianxia discovered that Sword Union's young Union Master was traveling in a convoy of starships, with the center one being slightly larger, about 300 meters in length. The left and right starships were only 200 meters each. A small fleet of 3 starships. As they were still too far away, Xianxia did not know what grade these 3 starships were, but they weren't lower than Origin grade. Sword Union was indeed a super force. Origin grade starships were considered strategic assets to the sects on Shadowed Star, but Sword Union could send out 3 together. However, the appearance of these 3 starships was far different from the one refined by Yang Yen. Bluntly put, these starships looked more like big sailing ships, especially the one in the middle. It was like a great ocean vessel sailing across the starry sky. Its bow was quite sharp, and the body was slender, almost giving it the appearance of a long sword from a distance. On the decks of the 3 starships, cultivators could be seen moving about. The approaching starships were clearly unaware of the crisis waiting in ambush in this asteroid sea and sailed straight towards it at speed. When the distance shrank to only 50 kilometers, though, Li Minghai, who had been hiding behind a giant asteroid, decided to take action. Even if they were separated by 100 kilometers, Xianxia could clearly feel a powerful wave of energy well up, and from several nearby locations in the asteroid sea, an intense light appeared. Immediately afterwards, dozens of white light beams shot out from the asteroid sea like arrows from a bow, showering down on the 3 starships in the distance like a rain of lightning. With such an obvious disturbance and such powerful energy fluctuations, the 3 starships obviously took notice, and the cultivators on deck all rushed out, summoned their defensive artifacts, and protected the starship as best they could. The 3 starships themselves also reacted extremely quickly. With a brilliant flash, a visible energy barrier surrounded each of the 3 starships. The starships also rapidly changed course in an attempt to dodge the incoming fire. However, Li Minghai and his subordinates had been waiting here for quite some time and were well prepared. The sneak attack they launched was perfectly timed, making it impossible for the 3 starships to avoid being hit. The several dozen white pillars of light hit upon the 3 starships like a giant wave crashing upon them. A brighter light erupted as the starship on the far left was unable to withstand this attack, its shield shattering before its hull was penetrated by several beams of light, resulting in severe damage and a massive explosion. No one could escape from the ship's destruction. The cultivators on this starship, along with the starship itself, were extinguished entirely by Li Minghai's first sneak attack. The starship on the right had better luck. Although its defensive shield was also worn down rapidly, it had suffered far fewer attacks, and its hull was only penetrated by 2 pillars of light. Although the starship was clearly crippled, it did not explode apart, so at least part of the crew had managed to survive. The cultivators who survived fled from the starship in a hurry, though with everyone in a flurry as they searched for the enemy. After seeing what had become of the leftmost starship, these survivors felt both fear and anger deep in their hearts. Among the 3 starships, only the one in the middle, the largest, remained in relatively good condition. Although it had withstood more attacks than the other 2 ships, This starship was obviously of a very high grade and its defensive shield was not completely breached, though it had become extremely dim. Before the survivors could recover, Li Minghai and his subordinates rushed out. Immediately after triggering the pillars of light, Li Minghai and his subordinates took action, seemingly having anticipated this situation. Arriving in front of the surviving starships, these ambushers summoned their offensive artifacts and began attacking. The already dim defensive shield was quickly broken. Li Minghai, so it's you. From the middle starship, a terrifying roar rang out. By listening to this voice, it was clear it belonged to a young man who was filled with monstrous anger. You dare attack this young master? Do you understand the consequences of your actions? The consequences of attacking the young Union Master, this old master is well aware. Among the crowd, the exposed Li Minghai remained indifferent, not showing the slightest panic. This old master is also an elder of Sword Union, so how could he not understand the rules? However, if young Union Master thinks he can dissuade this old master with such flimsy talk of rules, this old master will have to disappoint. Good, very good. It seems that you are ready to bear the violent anger of this young master. From the starship, Gu Jianxian's voice echoed and soon a young man appeared on its deck. This young man had a brave and heroic appearance, with a handsome face and a sharp light in his eyes that seemed to gleam like swords. Sword Union's young Union Master, Gu Jianxian, standing tall like a sword on the starship's deck, even facing an Origin King like Li Minghai. He did not show the slightest bit of fear, his expression simply remaining cold and indifferent. Next to Gu Jianxian there were two women, one to the left, one to the right. One was tall and had rich curves and lustrous eyes. The other was quite petite and had a delicate-looking face and long black hair that reached all the way down her back. These two women had completely different appearances and temperaments, but they both shared the same fearless, even somewhat eager, look on their faces as Gu Jianxian. Li Minghai and Gu Jianxian's eyes collided and sparks seemed to fly. The former soon frowned slightly though. He was shocked to discover that Gu Jianxian's aura was thicker than when he saw him last. It seemed the rumors were true. If there were no surprises, young Union Master Gu Jianxian would be able to attempt to break through to the Origin King realm within the next 3 to 5 years. Once he successfully reached the Origin King realm with his Universe Sword Body's special constitution, coupled with the left and right sword servants, no ordinary First-Order Origin King would be his opponent. He would even be able to fight with some Second-Order Origin Kings. A true monster. No wonder Vice Union Master Wei Chenzong was so eager to eradicate Gu Jianxian. Obviously, he had noticed just how terrifying the latter's growth had become. Fortunately, a rare opportunity had presented itself here today. As long as Gu Jianxian died, Sword Union would fall into the Vice Union Master's hands in the future. After all, a genius who failed to mature was no genius. Li Minghai. This young master has only one question. Gu Jianxian stood on the deck with his hands behind his back. How did you know that this young master would travel through here? Li Minghai narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Young Union Master already knows the answer in his heart. Why bother asking this old master? Gu Jianxian nodded lightly. It seems that there are traitors around this young master. Very well. Once this is all over, this young master will rout them out. Young Union Master need not worry about such matters as you have no future. Li Minghai waved his hand and shouted, Kill them all. Don't let a single one escape. If there were any survivors from this incident, it would bring great trouble, so Li Minghai didn't plan to leave any witnesses alive. With the order given, the Origin Realm Masters around Li Minghai took action, attacking the enemy cultivators who had escaped the right escort starship. Atop the middle starship where Gu Jianxian stood, a large number of cultivators also emerged, eager to meet the enemy. Instantly, the asteroid sea was filled with brilliant flashes of light as artifacts and secret techniques continued to bloom. Although there weren't many people on Li Minghai's side, 30 at most, all of them were masters at or above the Second-Order Origin returning realm, giving his side a very high combat effectiveness. On the other side, Gu Jianxian had 200 or so cultivators supporting him, but their cultivations were somewhat mixed and the number of masters they had was less than Li Minghai's side. Most importantly though, with an origin king like Li Minghai presiding over the situation, the pressure on Gu Jianxian's side was too great, making it difficult for the origin realm masters on the latter side to display their full strength. As such, when the two sides made contact, Gu Jianxian's side immediately began suffering heavy casualties while Li Minghai's side remained undamaged. For the start, Li Minghai's group had absolute superiority over Gu Jianxian's people. The battle had already started, but Li Minghai did not rush to take action, instead just staring at Gu Jianxian and the two women next to him with a solemn look on his face. It seemed that this man and two women in front of him were opponents worthy of him taking seriously. He didn't move, but Gu Jianxian, whose side was clearly weaker, naturally didn't dare to act rashly, only able to watch his subordinates fall one by one in frustration. After a long silence, Li Minghai said faintly, "Young Union Master, do you want to take your own life or do you need this old master to send you on your way? Old dog, you think you've already defeated this young master?" Gu Jianxian shouted coldly. Li Minghai slowly shook his head. Since this Li dared to appear here, naturally he is fully prepared. Young Union Master is indeed a dragon among men, with your universe sword body and your left and right sword servants who have cultivated together with you since childhood. You are truly extremely difficult to deal with, but Young Union Master has not arrived at the Origin King Realm after all. If you had already reached the Origin King Realm, this old master would definitely not be your opponent. Unfortunately, Young Union Master is destined to be unable to escape today. Whether I can escape this crisis today or not, you will know after you try. Gu Jianxian roared as he summoned a white long sword into his hand. Sword light surrounding his body, he soared up from the deck. This sword light was like a rising sun covering the earth, brilliant and majestic. When he moved, the two women who had been standing behind him also moved. Like Gu Jianxian, they summoned their swords, released brilliant sword light from their bodies, and followed after Gu Jianxian. Different from Gu Jianxian, however, the sword light these two females emitted manifested as a great crescent moon and a sea of shimmering stars. The three sword lights rapidly merged into one and exuded a shocking momentum that far surpassed what an origin returning realm master should be able to. A long sword light cut through the void and slashed towards Li Minghai in the next instant. Li Minghai's eyes flashed as he was truly shocked by the might of Gu Jianxian's secret technique, calling out loud, "Sun, moon, and stars." The three swords' brilliant secret technique is truly deserving of its reputation. With just this, Young Union Master can already be considered invincible in the origin returning realm. Unfortunately, your left and right sword servants are slightly worse than your own, and you are not an origin king. Let this old master show you just how big the gap between the origin realm and the origin king realm is. Saying so, an invisible force spread out from Li Minghai's body. Domain. Li Minghai had broken through to the origin king realm over 500 years ago, and could already be considered an established master in this realm. Even if he had no hope of advancing his cultivation higher in the future, and his domain was not that strong, in the end it was still a domain. An origin returning realm cultivator who was enveloped in a domain was destined to be completely suppressed, unable to resist. However, Li Minghai's domain was actually unable to stop Gu Jianxian's trio. From the sword light of these three, a new force emerged suddenly and easily broke through the Li Minghai domain suppression. Li Minghai's eyes shrank as he shouted in a low voice, "Bright Sea Domain Dividing Mirror. To think Union Master gave you this treasure." The Bright Sea Domain Dividing Mirror was an Origin King grade artifact, and after being activated, it could nullify the effects of an Origin King's domain to a large extent. If the opponent wasn't strong enough, it was even possible for this mirror to shatter their domain entirely. This strange treasure was quite famous throughout the star field. After all, artifacts that could resist domain were extremely rare. With the help of this treasure, Gu Jianxian and his two sword servants weren't suppressed by Li Minghai's domain and were able to send their attack towards him. Facing the sun, moon, and stars' three swords' brilliant secret technique, Li Minghai didn't dare act carelessly. Flipping his wrist, The long spear artifact which he had used to attack Yang Kai before appeared again, and he began pouring his Saint Qi into it. A shocking force condensed at the tip of the spear as Li Minghai flew forward to meet Gu Jian Xian's trio in close combat. The clank of metal rang out instantly. Sword and spear shadows flooded a massive region as the four figures of Li Minghai and Gu Jian Xian's trio were engulfed by brilliant flashes of light. In the distance, Yang Kai stared at all of this in amazement, an expression of surprise on his face. Being able to compete with an Origin King with just an Origin-returning realm cultivation was not something that could normally be achieved, but Gu Jian Xian had done just that. Even though he was drawing strength from the two women behind him, it was clear he wouldn't be suppressed anytime soon. Moreover, the cultivation of those two women was obviously inferior to Gu Jian Xian, both of them seemingly just second-order Origin-returning realm cultivators. However, it was also clear that these three had cultivated some kind of profound secret technique that allowed them to consolidate their strength and exert a force far beyond that of an ordinary Origin realm master. This young Union master of Sword Union was quite impressive. When the battle between the two sides started, Yang Kai had already left his hiding place and stealthily approached the battlefield to observe more closely. 80% of his attention was focused on Li Minghai as he looked for an opportunity to launch a sneak attack. To deal with an Origin King like Li Minghai, if the right timing was not grasped, it would only result in alerting the enemy. So Yang Kai had to wait patiently. Originally, he was a little worried that Gu Jian Xian and the others would be defeated in a single blow. But now, it seemed like this young Union master could actually fight on for some time. While observing the fight, Yang Kai noticed a few streaks of light escaping towards the asteroid sea. Obviously, the battlefield had begun to expand, with some cultivators trying to escape, and this asteroid sea, which was filled with obstacles, was undoubtedly the best place to escape to. Two weaker cultivators appeared to be fleeing, and from the outline of their figures they were probably women. At the same time, a cultivator from Li Minghai's side was chasing after them. Judging from the aura fluctuations, the two escaping women were third-order Saint Kings. Such cultivations really had no use in this kind of battle. The cultivator chasing behind them was a second-order Origin returning realm master, and with the vast gap in their strengths, it was nothing less than a miracle these two women had even managed to escape this far. Because of Li Minghai's order not to leave anyone alive, the second-order Origin returning realm master didn't intend to let the two women go and hurriedly chased after them, closing the gap between them rapidly. The relationship between these two women was obviously close, as even when they were fleeing, they didn't abandon one another and kept guarding each other tightly. What made Yang Kai feel helpless, though, was that the direction they were moving towards was actually where he was hiding. If nothing unexpected happened, they would fly past him within a few breaths. Letting out a sigh, Yang Kai prepared to take action. A moment later, the two women who were escaping flew past the asteroid where Yang Kai was hiding. At such a close distance, and with the two women already looking for suitable hiding places, they naturally found Yang Kai right away. When their eyes met, Yang Kai was stunned for a moment while the two women on the opposite side were also stupefied. In the next instant, the second-order Origin returning realm cultivator who had been chasing them arrived though and sent out a palm towards the two frozen women. Judging by the power of this attack, even if these two women resisted with all their strength, they would probably be seriously injured at best. However, the palm the man sent out suddenly collapsed halfway to its target. What happened? The second-order Origin returning realm cultivator who had been chasing the pair of women was startled. But before he could react, he saw a golden light flash in front of him and vaguely felt a golden thread-like object cut through his neck. The Saint Qi he used to protect himself was like paper in front of this golden thread, unable to play any effect at all. After a slight stinging pain, the cultivator's vision grew dim and faded into darkness. In the asteroid sea, Yang Kai looked at the two women standing nearby in amazement. These two women were undoubtedly more surprised than Yang Kai though. When the Origin returning realm master who was chasing them died all of a sudden, the two women screamed and turned around, wanting to see who it was that saved them. Seeing none of their allies nearby though, the two women finally turned their eyes back to Yang Kai as they had a fairly good guess what had just transpired. But despite knowing in their hearts what the truth was, Their beautiful eyes still showed incredible shock. "What are you dawdling for? Come here quickly," Yang Kai called out in a low voice while beckoning to them. Only then did the two women come back to their senses, exchange a glance, and quickly hurried over to a spot 10 meters away from Yang Kai while eyeing him suspiciously, their expressions wavering in uncertainty. Yang Kai looked at them with a grin and said teasingly, "What's wrong? After only a few years you don't recognize me anymore." Hearing his words, the two women gasped fiercely and confirmed the guess in their hearts was not wrong. But because of this, they felt more and more shocked, the taller of the two covering her mouth as she called out hesitantly, "Yang Kai, is it really you? Did you kill that person just now? When did you become so powerful? Why are you here in the first place?" The other woman, who seemed to be younger, quickly spat a flurry of questions before suddenly becoming alert again and asking, "Are you with Li Minghai?" As soon as she began speaking, she seemed unable to stop, leaving Yang Kai no gap to answer her questions. The older woman observed Yang Kai seriously for a moment before slowly shaking her head. "Little sister, don't talk nonsense. If he was with Li Minghai, why would he bother helping us just now?" Yang Kai chuckled, looking at the younger woman and teasing, "He meow. Seems you are still as scatterbrained as before." He meow heard this, and her face turned red as she shyly said, "I'm sorry. I was just too frightened. It's all right." Yang Kai smiled lightly as he observed the two women and said with nostalgia, "I didn't expect that we would meet again in such a place after a few dozen years." These two women were the very same ones Yang Kai had first met when he entered the starfield, He Zao and He Miao. After escaping from the floating continent all those years ago, they had never met one another. So, upon seeing them here, Yang Kai was also quite surprised. But after thinking about it carefully, Yang Kai recalled that these two sisters, He Zao and He Miao, were disciples from Sword Union. So while unlikely, it wasn't impossible for them to be here. Nevertheless, being caught up in this kind of incident, it seemed these two sisters had quite the bad luck. "And it's been many years since we last met," He Zao sighed. "I didn't expect you to be so powerful now. You killed that person just now, right?" And, seeing Yang Kai admit it, even though they had their suspicions, the two sisters were still a little speechless. When they met Yang Kai for the first time, Yang Kai was nothing but a first-order saint, and even their own cultivations were higher than him at the third-order and second-order saint realm. After 30 years, the two sisters had used their excellent aptitude and hard work to rapidly reach the third-order Saint King realm. But compared to Yang Kai, their achievement seemed completely insufficient. Being able to kill a second-order origin returning realm master instantly, even under the premise of a sneak attack, proved that Yang Kai was at least an origin realm cultivator himself. And most likely, a third-order origin returning realm master. The moment when Yang Kai showed his hand, He Zao felt an energy fluctuation not weaker than the young Union Master Gu Jianxian. Both sisters were deeply shocked. Suddenly, He Zao's expression changed again and she asked solemnly, "Yang Kai, can you please help us?" "With what?" "Please save our honored master." "Your honored master?" Yang Kai frowned, but quickly realized that He Zao should be referring to that beautiful woman Yushi. When they were trapped on the floating continent that year, the honored master of the He Zao and He Mao sisters, Yushi, was also there. Yang Kai had some dealings with her, but they had not been very pleasant. Because Yang Kai's birthplace was too remote and his cultivation wasn't high, Yushi had looked down on him. Furthermore, Yang Kai also killed Yushi's other disciple at that time, causing her to bear open hostility towards him. But later, Yushi's perception of Yang Kai improved for various reasons and ultimately, with his help, she and her two disciples were able to successfully escape the floating continent. On top of that, it turned out that her last disciple wasn't a good thing, and his death wasn't worth pitying. "Yushi is here too?" Yang Kai glanced towards the battlefield again, only to see a large area of brilliant flashes and chaotic energy fluctuations, making it impossible for him to tell who was fighting from this distance. An anxious look appeared on He Zao's face. "We were only able to escape thanks to Honored Master delaying the enemy, but her situation is not optimistic. I don't know how long she can hold on. Yang Kai, can you?" she obviously knew that her request was a bit excessive. The battlefield was in a state of chaos right now, and even an Origin King Realm Master was fighting. Anyone who entered haphazardly would certainly be at great risk. However, Hizeo was just a third-order Saint King and was unable to help Wuxia at all. So she could only swallow her embarrassment and ask Xianxia for help. "Big brother Yang," Himiao also called out in a pitiful voice with a pleading look on her face. Her previous liveliness had all but vanished, and she now appeared quite helpless and forlorn, thinking that the honored master who raised her might fall in that battlefield. Himiao almost burst into tears, perhaps because of their experience when escaping from the floating continent, or perhaps because Xianxia just killed a second-order origin returning realm cultivator with a single blow. The two sisters had inexplicable confidence in him and believed that if he took action, their honored master could be saved. Wuxia had a bad impression of Xianxia at the beginning, but she had only the warmest of intentions for her two disciples. Otherwise, she would not have taken such great risks to delay the enemy in order to let Hizeo and Himiao escape. Xianxia's brow furrowed deeply. Seeing this, Hizeo and Himiao did not dare to urge him and simply waited anxiously. After a short silence, Xianxia raised his eyes and said seriously, "The main reason why I am hiding here is to launch a sneak attack against that Li Minghai." Hizeo and Himiao suddenly exclaimed as they stared at Xianxia in shock, an incredible brilliance flashing across their beautiful eyes. An origin returning realm master wanting to sneak attack an origin king. This was like an ant hiding in the shadows, then stretching out its leg to try to trip an elephant. A completely unbelievable scenario. "I'm serious. When I passed by here before, I was attacked by him, which is why I remained." Xianxia looked at them lightly. "So it's not convenient for me to come forward now." The brilliance in the sisters' eyes quickly dimmed. "However, since Himiao calls me big brother, I can't just sit back and watch," Xianxia chuckled. Himiao looked at Xianxia in pleasant surprise, and the pale, bloodless complexion on her face was replaced with a shy blush. "Come out," Xianxia suddenly called, and in the next moment, a stream of fiery red energy burst from his body before quickly condensing into a human figure. In the blink of an eye, a glamorous woman with an exotic figure appeared strangely in front of Hizeo and Himiao. This glamorous woman had fiery red hair which looked like the most gorgeous of burning flames, and her clothes were all crimson red in color. At such a close distance, both Hizeo and Himiao felt an astonishing and dangerous energy fluctuation coming from this woman. This was an aura of pure destructive power. "Master, what are your orders?" As soon as the woman appeared, she asked Xianxia respectfully, without even looking at Hizeo or Himiao, as if in her eyes, the two women were like air and could be ignored. "Accompany and protect them." Xianxia pointed to Hizeo and Himiao. The woman finally glanced towards the two sisters and nodded lightly. "Xianxia, she is?" Hizeo asked hesitantly. "My friend. You can call her Lu Yen," Xianxia replied. Even Xianxia did not notice that when he introduced Lu Yen to the two sisters this way, her beautiful eyes flashed with a subtle but extremely bright light. "So it is elder sister Lu Yen. We will be imposing on elder sister then." Although Hizeo saw that Lu Yen didn't have a physical form, the other party's sentience was clearly quite high, so she did not dare act negligently. "Lu Yen will obey master's orders." Lu Yen didn't say much, replying promptly and concisely. "Go." Xianxia nodded faintly at Lu Yen. Lu Yen nodded back before her body transformed back into a stream of fiery light and dove into Hizeo's body before she could even react. Hizeo exclaimed in shock, but soon, a look of pleasant surprise appeared on her face, because she felt that there was a terrifying power now hidden within her body. Although this power was not under her control, and even brought her some discomfort from its heat, with this power, she was confident she could save her honored master. Turning a look filled with gratitude to Xianxia, she bowed her head. "Thank you. Be careful." Xianxia smiled lightly. The Hizeo and Himiao sisters looked at each other quickly before turning around and flying towards the battlefield. With Lu Yan's assistance, the safety of the two sisters was assured, since she swallowed and refined the heavenly thunder fire in brilliant flame sect. Not only had Lu Yan's sentience evolved greatly, Her strength had also soared. Before swallowing the heavenly thunder fire, she was able to fight against third-order origin realm masters. After swallowing it, she was now capable of competing with an ordinary first-order origin king. On the battlefield, there was only one origin king, Li Minghai, so no one else was Lu Yan's opponent. It was conceivable that once He Zhao and He Miao returned with Lu Yan, the entire course of the battle would shift dramatically, flipping which side was overwhelming the other. Collecting his thoughts, Yang Kai refocused his attention on Gu Jianxian and Li Minghai. Their battle was the fiercest in the entire battlefield and gave off the greatest energy fluctuations, so it was easy for Yang Kai to find them at a glance. Gu Jianxian and his left and right sword servants were still fighting together as one, wrapping themselves in the image of the sun, moon, and stars, releasing potent sword chi waves towards Li Minghai, who used his long spear to nimbly fight back against them. The two sides seemed to be locked in an even battle so far. After observing for a moment, though, Yang Kai could tell that Gu Jianxian's side was starting to have difficulties. When he and the two women performed the secret technique before, the sun, moon, and star sword brilliances were extremely bright, with a radiant sun, bright crescent moon, and sea of stars supporting and enhancing one another, but now, these three manifestations were slowly beginning to dim and their aura had become somewhat depressed. On the other hand, Li Minghai's strength had not diminished. It seemed that, if nothing happened, Gu Jianxian would ultimately lose. Taking advantage of the fierce fighting between them, Yang Kai also began to draw closer. Gu Jianxian being able to fight until now was already quite impressive, and even if at that last moment, he was unable to cause heavy losses to Li Minghai, he should at least be able to wear him down and draw his full attention. As long as Li Minghai's attention was diverted, Yang Kai could take the opportunity to attack. Soon, Yang Kai had approached to within 10 kilometers of the battle's perimeter. This was the limit of how close he could get. Any closer and Li Minghai would definitely notice him. Just after Yang Kai concealed himself once again, Li Minghai's shout rang out, "Young Union Master, if this is the extent of your ability, then this old master will be sending you to the afterlife today." Gu Jianxian did not respond, but it was not clear whether he disdained to do so, or he did not have the spare capacity to. The sword light he and his left and right sword servants were emitting suddenly bloomed, transforming into a massive sword thousands of meters long and swiftly chopped towards Li Minghai's head. Li Minghai saw this and laughed loudly. "Paltry tricks! Even now you insist on this futile resistance, young Union Master." As soon as these words fell, the soul-breaker spear in Li Minghai's hand flicked, and from its tip a profound dark light shot out to meet the massive sword light. The white and black rays of light collided and burst into a massive explosion that sent out a wave of powerful ripples. These ripples of energy were violent enough to force all the surrounding origin returning realm masters in the vicinity to retreat. The two opposite energies clashed in the void, but soon, the stalemate was broken. Li Minghai had used some kind of secret technique to greatly increase the intensity of his dark light and directly suppressed the sword light. A loud bang resounded. The sword light burst to pieces and a muffled snort echoed as three shadows shot out in different directions. Gu Jianxian's face was pale and there were clear traces of blood at the corners of his lips. Obviously, he had suffered some injuries. His left and right sword servants were in even worse condition. These two attendants had cultivated together with Gu Jianxian from when he was a child until now, and as auxiliaries who supported him, their cultivation had always been one step lower than for Gu Jianxian's. As a result, the two sword servants suffered greater damage in this exchange. The left and right sword servants coughed up blood as their tender bodies tumbled uncontrollably. Their robes dyed a dark crimson red. Li Minghai's eyes flashed a ruthless light, but instead of taking this opportunity to take Gu Jianxian's life, his figure flickered and he thrust his spear towards the left sword servant who was closest to him. As an origin king, his combat experience was naturally extremely rich, and although this might be the best time to kill Gu Jianxian, given the latter's extraordinary identity, and the fact that he was carrying a famous artifact like the Bright Sea Domain Dividing Mirror, there was no telling what other kinds of life-saving treasures he had on him. Li Minghai was not confident he could kill Gu Jianxian in a single blow. As such, he chose to attack the left sword servant. As long as the left sword servant died, Gu Jianxian would no longer be able to use his sun, moon, and star's three swords brilliance secret technique. Once that happened, Li Minghai was confident he could slowly wear down Gu Jianxian until he died. Witnessing Li Minghai's actions, the right sword servant's beautiful eyes filled with determination and anxiety, hurriedly stabilizing her tumbling figure before pushing her Saint Qi and gathering her sword light again as she flew towards the left sword servant. Gu Jianxian also let out a near-hysterical shout, "Lingyu, watch out!" As he shouted, he too desperately rushed over. Three figures rapidly moved towards the left sword servant, shrinking the distance between them in an instant. A sardonic grin appeared at the corner of Li Minghai's lips, and when he felt that the timing was just right, he suddenly whirled around and threw the soul-breaker spear in his hand towards the right sword servant. Everyone was stunned. Only now did they understand that Li Minghai's initial goal was not the left sword servant, but the right sword servant. Or perhaps, he had reacted in the moment after discovering a better target. After the soul-breaker spear flew out of Li Minghai's hand, it transformed into a giant python which opened its blood-red mouth and bit towards the right sword servant, as if wanting to swallow her whole. This was a genuine Origin King-grade artifact, not something the right sword servant could handle alone. If she were to take this attack head-on, death was the only possibility. At that moment, Gu Jianxian's body released a flash of brilliance, and using some kind of secret technique or artifact, he instantly appeared in front of his right sword servant, grabbed hold of her, and placed his body between her and the incoming attack. At the same time, a cyan-colored artifact armor that seemed to be composed of numerous tiny scales appeared on Gu Jianxian's body. On the artifact armor, flowing runes and light flashed, and at first glance it was obviously a high-grade defensive artifact. After being activated by Gu Jianxian's Saint Qi, the artifact armor released a firm energy barrier. The moment the light barrier formed, Li Minghai's attack reached its target. The giant python smashed up against Gu Jianxian's artifact armor. The bright energy light film dimmed at a speed visible to the naked eye, only managing to persist for 2 breaths before bursting apart. The python's remaining power struck Gu Jianxian's body at that moment, causing him to fly out while coughing up mouthfuls of blood onto his right sword servant and turning his face pale and bloodless. This old master admires young Union master's loving heart and righteousness. But, though you managed to save one, can you save the other as well? Li Minghai's triumphant voice sounded with a hint of sarcasm and mockery. Gu Jianxian, who was still tumbling flying backwards, fixed his eyes and found that Li Minghai was now flying towards the left sword servant again and was condensing his Saint Qi onto his palm. From that palm, a powerful vortex began to form. With the power of this vortex, coupled with the innate pressure of an Origin King Realm Master, the left sword servant was suppressed to the point where she could not move or put up any resistance. However, as death befell her, she did not show the slightest worry about her own safety, instead turning her beautiful, worry-filled eyes towards Gu Jianxian. Seeing that Gu Jianxian had not been killed and had only suffered a serious injury, her expression relaxed, and her red lips moved lightly. He could not hear her voice, but Gu Jianxian knew that she was telling him to escape. Li Minghai! Gu Jianxian roared like a wounded beast, his voice filled with hatred as he echoed through the void, his eyes going completely bloodshot. Young master, you must go. The right sword servant, who was still being held in Gu Jianxian's arms, firmly grasped him and cried out pleadingly, Sister Ling, you would not want you to throw your life away here. As long as you can escape, Sister Ling Yu's death won't be in vain. Gu Jianxian froze in place as he hesitated about what to do. But in the next instant, the rage-filled expression on his face changed to one of utter astonishment. Immediately, a burst of pleasant surprise flashed across his eyes as his gaze landed behind Li Minghai. Gu Jianxian had suddenly discovered that a figure had appeared behind Li Minghai at some unknown point. This person was like a ghost, approaching to within 10 meters of Li Minghai without the old dog Li even noticing. Immediately, this mysterious young man waved his hand through the air rapidly, sending out a series of pitch-black, crescent-shaped blades that flew towards Li Minghai. Each of these attacks gave off a profound and mysterious power that even from a great distance, Gu Jianxian was able to clearly sense it. As soon as this attack was launched, Li Minghai noticed and he roared, "Who?" Hurriedly turning around, Li Minghai pushed his palm out towards this unknown assailant. Shock and excitement filled Gu Jianxian's face when he saw Li Minghai's palm fail to fully disperse this wave of attacks, allowing several of the black crescent blades to reach his arm. Suddenly, little pieces of the old dog surnamed Li's arm vanished. As if they never existed, they were swallowed by the void. When the pain of losing his arm finally registered, Li Minghai roared madly as he stretched out his undamaged arm and drew the Soulbreaker spear back to him. His eyes practically spitting fire, he glared at the young man who attacked him and shouted, "Junior, I'll make you pay for this. You won't have the chance." The young man coldly snorted as he summoned a bladeless, green long sword with a flip of his wrist. The long sword trembled and twisted slightly as it transformed into a giant dark green dragon that pounced towards Li Minghai. A mighty dragon roar shook the sky as thick dragon pressure descended from above, causing Li Minghai to let out a strange cry as he quickly pushed the Soulbreaker spear's power, transforming it into its giant python form. The two transformed artifact monsters collided with each other violently. But how could a mere python ever defeat a dragon? After only a brief resistance, the python was destroyed by the dragon. Li Minghai finally showed a look of horror in his eyes as he hurriedly searched for the young man who attacked him. But to his shock, he was unable to find him anywhere, just as he mysteriously appeared. After summoning this terrifying dragon artifact, the young man had vanished like a ghost. A thick murderous intent suddenly appeared behind him, causing Li Minghai's heart to jump, and he instinctually released his domain in an attempt to regain the initiative. Although their confrontation had been brief, Li Minghai had keenly noticed that the young man who attacked him was only a third-order origin returning realm cultivator. To deal with an origin realm cultivator, domain was undoubtedly the best choice. Not everyone was like Gu Jianxian, possessing an extraordinary treasure like the bright sea domain dividing mirror that could resist domain. Li Minghai's had made the best response possible, but to his shock, the moment his domain spread out, it was met by a potent Shur, one that was not only unsuppressed by his domain, but was even able to confront it head-on. There was a mysterious power integrated into this Shur. The surrounding space began to collapse, and innumerable tiny void cracks began to fill Li Minghai's surroundings, enveloping him in an airtight field. "Space Force!" Li Minghai exclaimed. At that moment, the giant dark green dragon that destroyed the giant python rushed over and opened its giant maw to bite towards Li Minghai. Behind him, an icy chill struck Li Minghai as an intense murderous washed over him like a tidal wave. He was completely surrounded, with no way out. "Old dog Li!" Gu Jianxian rushed over and released a dazzling sun-like sword light towards Li Minghai. At the same time, the surrounding burst with golden light as hundreds of golden threads slashed through space. The void cracks around Li Minghai's body also rapidly enlarged and traversed towards him. In that instant, Li Minghai was submerged by a myriad of different deadly attacks. The place where Li Minghai stood was instantly enveloped by a dazzling burst of light, blinding all who were nearby and releasing a heaven-destroying and earth-shattering energy fluctuation. Gu Jianxian flew out again even faster than before, but fortunately, the right sword servant, having anticipated this moment, was there to catch him. With a loud cough, Gu Jianxian slumped over into the arms of his right sword servant and sprayed out a thick blood mist. "Young master!" the right sword servant cried out as her beautiful eyes filled with worry. Gu Jianxian did not have the luxury to answer as his eyes fixed straight ahead. He did not know if Li Minghai was dead, but the piercing feedback he felt from his sword just now was a clear indication that he had managed to stab Li Minghai's vitals. Nevertheless, his opponent was an Origin King. This was the first time Gu Jianxian had truly fought an Origin King in a life-or-death battle, so he was naturally somewhat inexperienced. Before seeing Li Minghai's corpse with his own eyes, he dared not act carelessly. The brilliant flash of light gradually dissipated, and a figure emerged. Gu Jianxian's eyes shrank suddenly. Li Minghai. Even after suffering such a terrifying attack, Li Minghai had not died. However, having been struck by such a powerful wave of attacks, Li Minghai had been reduced to a disheveled and embarrassing appearance. His clothes were ragged and the artifact armor he had summoned in the nick of time was also clearly destroyed. What made Gu Jianxian overjoyed though was that Li Minghai's injuries were obviously not light, with blood leaking from many places and numerous wounds so deep that his bones were showing. On Li Minghai's face, an expression filled with anger and fear had appeared. He was truly frightened as he felt the threat of death just now. Unable to calm his nerves, Li Minghai looked around, his gaze only staying on Gu Jianxian and the right sword servant for a moment before it continued scanning the surrounding void. Unfortunately, Li Minghai was not able to achieve anything as he couldn't discover a single trace of the mysterious young man who attacked him before. Junior, this old master will make you pay the price one day. Li Minghai tried to put up a strong front as he shouted before turning into a stream of light and fleeing towards the distance, leaving behind a trail of blood as he flew. He must not escape, Gu Jianxian shouted towards the void as he gasped for breath. Just as his voice fell, from somewhere in the void, a multicolored burst of light appeared, and a 5-colored sword chi formed into a giant blade that flashed towards the fleeing Li Minghai. Li Minghai was horrified when he felt this approaching attack and hurriedly used a secret technique to protect himself. Unfortunately, he was strong in will but weak in strength, and the method he used was only able to block the 5-colored sword chi for an instant before it was shattered. The sword wave sliced through Li Minghai's body before disappearing into the distance like a shining comet. Li Minghai's body froze in place, his eyes wide and unmoving. The vitality of his body and the light in his eyes quickly dissipated. A dignified Origin King Realm Master died here. Gu Jianxian, who was watching from a distance, could not figure out the situation. After being severely wounded, he did not dare to act rashly and just continued to stare at Li Minghai's body vigilantly. Soon though, the still-shaken left sword servant flew over and inspected Li Minghai before happily flying over to rendezvous with Gu Jianxian. When his left sword servant returned, Gu Jianxian asked eagerly, "How is it?" "Li Minghai is dead," left sword servant replied. Gu Jianxian exhaled a long breath, his whole figure relaxing as he limply fell into the right sword servant's embrace as he said with some lingering fear, "Good, good. As long as he's dead it's good. Young master, that person just now." The left sword servant wore a suspicious look on her face. "He's not from our sword union." Gu Jianxian shook his head, took out some pills from his space ring, stuffed them into his mouth and said, "We can figure it out later, but we need to go support the others first. Old Dog Li brought a lot of masters with him. I am afraid they won't." "Huh!" While Gu Jianxian spoke, he turned his head and looked towards the distant battlefield and was greeted by a strange scene. Many of the cultivators from his side were still alive while, on the contrary, Li Minghai's subordinates were almost all dead or severely injured. Gu Jianxian had been fighting Li Minghai just now, so he did not have the time to pay attention to anything else. So this scene came as quite a surprise to him. Gu Jianxian was naturally well aware of the gap in strength between the two sides and knew his side was far weaker than Li Minghai's. After all, Li Minghai had laid an ambush for him here, so how could he not have made appropriate preparations? This time, Gu Jianxian was lucky enough to kill Li Minghai and keep his life thanks to the help of that noble stranger. But how were his subordinates also able to emerge victoriously? Gu Jianxian could not believe his eyes. However, after watching for a while, he finally understood what was happening. It turned out to be because of Yuxi and her 2 disciples. Gu Jianxian had met Yuxi, He Zhao, and He Miao before. In any case, the master and disciple trio were cultivators who followed him. So although Yuxi was only a first order, she was still an Origin Realm Master. Gu Jianxian naturally had some impression of them. At this moment, the master and disciple trio were leading the charge against the enemy who should be far stronger than them, but it was actually the 3 of them who were in complete control of the battle. Whenever a battle erupted, a red light would burst from Hizeo's body, and the enemy would inexplicably fall. "What is that red light?" Gu Jianxian could not understand it at all. He never knew that there was such an astonishing cultivator hidden amongst his subordinates who was capable of such an incredible feat. The overall situation had been determined over there, with Li Minghai's side's defeat being inevitable. The few survivors from the original ambushers were now fleeing while Gu Jianxian's subordinates were in pursuit. Gu Jianxian felt relieved and took a deep breath before cupping his fists and calling out to the void, "Dare I ask honored friend's name? For this life-saving kindness, this Gu is extremely grateful. If it is convenient, could friend come out and meet with me? Ha! Young Union Master is too polite." A hearty laughter came from nearby and Gu Jianxian turned his head to find a familiar young man, who he might have met before but could not put his finger on it, was now slowly walking over to him. Gu Jianxian's eyes flashed as his left and right sword servants looked at Yang Kai with curiosity and gratitude. If it were not for Yang Kai's sudden appearance, while it didn't matter if they had died, it was certain their young master would have perished as well. As such, the left and right sword servants were extremely grateful towards Yang Kai, who had turned the tide of the battle, and their eyes reflected a kind light as they observed him. Gu Jianxian also observed Yang Kai carefully and confirmed that the other part was truly just a third-order origin returning realm cultivator as he had detected before. But the combat power this young man had shown before was clearly far beyond his realm. Perhaps, even if he were to join forces with his left and right sword servants, they would not necessarily be this young man's opponents. Gu Jianxian was thoroughly shocked. As Sword Union's young Union Master, from infancy until now, he had received resources and training beyond anything ordinary people could dream of. He also wasn't a second-generation child with no ambition. He had lofty ideals and a broad future before him, so he had never slacked in his cultivation over the years. He thought that there were few of his generation in the starfield worthy to be his opponent within the origin-returning realm. But today he saw one, a cultivator of the same generation who made him feel intense pressure. "Third young master Shuiyu?" Gu Jianxian asked suspiciously. Yang Kai's face twitched visibly as he spat. "Do I look like such a womanly boy?" Gu Jianxian smiled awkwardly as his left and right sword servants also couldn't help tittering lightly. The more playful-looking left sword servant even giggling out loud, but feeling that she was acting indiscreetly, she quickly used her jade hand to cover her mouth. "Sorry, this Gu and third young master Shui you have not met for many, many years," Gu Jianxian explained. "Then is your excellency Zidong?" "Who?" Yang Kai asked in confusion. "Purple Star's young master." Gu Jianxian was at a loss. "Ho! It seems young Union Master believes only young masters from other great forces are qualified to speak with you?" Yang Kai looked at Gu Jianxian with a smile. "This Gu meant no such thing," Gu Jianxian said solemnly. "It's just that this Gu finds it difficult to imagine that someone could become so strong without the support of such a great force. If I have shown any impropriety, please forgive me." "It's fine," Yang Kai smiled lightly. "I am not a person from any great force. My name is Yang Kai." Gu Jianxian was taken aback as he truly had never heard the name Yang Kai before. What was certain was that he was definitely not from any great force. But this reality only shocked Gu Jianxian even more. Cupping his fists solemnly again, he politely called, "So it is Brother Yang." Yang Kai nodded lightly before glancing towards the distance where the other battlefield had settled down. With Lu Yan's help, how could Li Minghai's subordinates have any chance to escape? All of them were executed without a single one being able to escape. "Brother Yang, this Gu has a question, but I don't know if it's appropriate to ask." Gu Jianxian suddenly spoke. "When I passed by here before, Li Minghai attacked me by surprise, so I decided to lie in ambush here to return the favor." Yang Kai glanced at him and answered before the question was asked. "Brother Yang is brave, bold, and strong." Gu Jianxian brow jumped. An ordinary origin returning realm cultivator who was sneak attacked by an origin king and managed to survive would normally run as far away as possible. They may gnash their teeth and curse violently to vent their anger, but very few would dare do what Yang Kai did, daring to come back and launch his own sneak attack. Those who acted this way either didn't fear the heavens or had something to rely on that gave them confidence in success. And from the results, it was obviously Yang Kai belonged to the latter category. It seemed he had not used his full strength in the previous battle. Moreover, this Yang Kai was obviously a man who sought revenge for any grievance he suffered. Since it was supposed to be a sneak attack, why didn't Brother Yang wait for a better opportunity? For example, when Old Dog Li killed me and relaxed his guard. Brother Yang could have chosen to take action at that time and saved himself some effort, Gu Jianxian asked. Needing to put in more effort doesn't mean I couldn't kill him. Yang Kai smiled confidently. What young Union Master wants to ask is why I saved you, yes? Gu Jianxian nodded. It would be a pity for a man who is willing to sacrifice himself for his woman to die just like that, Yang Kai replied. Earlier, Gu Jianxian had personally resisted Li Minghai's blow for his right sword servant, and Yang Kai was clear on how dangerous that was. If anything had gone wrong, Gu Jianxian and his right sword servant would have both died together. Yang Kai had also fought side by side with Su Yan before against a master like Luo Hai, so he very much approved of Gu Jianxian's approach. A man who was willing to go so far for his beloved was definitely not a cunning and sinister character. Gu Jianxian was stunned. The left and right sword servants also blushed slightly as they glanced towards Gu Jianxian with clear affection reflected in their beautiful eyes. Soon though, Gu Jianxian let out a hearty laugh and the last traces of vigilance in his eyes finally dissipated, saying with great heroic spirit, "It seems that Brother Yang is also a man among men. This Gu being able to encounter Brother Yang here is truly an honor." Yang Kai touched his nose and said, "The other reason is, I am acquainted with someone from your sword union." "Oh? Brother Yang knows someone from our sword union?" Gu Jianxian asked with joy. Without even mentioning that he now owed Yang Kai a life-saving grace, Gu Jianxian felt it quite enthusiastic about Yang Kai and wanted to make friends with him. As such, hearing that Yang Kai had some contact with Sword Union already naturally made Gu Jianxian incredibly happy. "Who is it that Brother Yang knows?" "They're coming over now," Yang Kai gestured. Gu Jianxian turned his head and soon found that the Yushi master and disciple trio, who had shined so brightly in battle, were flying over. "So it's them." Gu Jianxian was genuinely surprised. He thought that the one Yang Kai knew was some top master among his subordinates, but it actually turned out to be these three. Soon after, Yushi, Hizeo, and He Miao crossed the short distance separating them and saluted Gu Jianxian before asking about his situation. After learning that the young Union Master was fine, they all visibly relaxed. Big Brother Yang, Hizeo, and He Miao turned to Yang Kai next. This time, they had relied on Yang Kai's help to turn danger into safety, so they did not treat him as an outsider and called out to him charmingly. Yang Kai nodded slightly, stretched out his hand, and took back a brilliant red light from Hizeo's body, sucking it into his palm. "Thank you, Yang Kai. If not for your help, we would all have perished here. This mistress and her disciples are eternally grateful." Yushi sincerely thanked him. Yang Kai did not stand on ceremony and calmly accepted the other side's gratitude. Brother Yang is actually acquainted with Lady Yu and her disciples. It seems all of this was truly predestined. Gu Jianxian laughed loudly. "If Brother Yang doesn't object, why not come aboard this Gu's starship to rest? This Gu will offer the finest entertainment." Yang Kai heard this but did not immediately agree. The reason why he stayed here was mainly because he wanted to launch a sneak attack on Li Minghai, so now that the latter was dead, he had no particular reason to remain. Seeing him go silent, Gu Jianxian did not try to urge him, but Hizeo and He Miao both stared at Yang Kai pleadingly, as if hoping he would agree. "Might I ask what young Union Master's destination is for this trip?" After a while, Yang Kai looked up and asked. "Brother Yang can just call me Brother Gu. Being referred to as young Union Master seems a bit stiff." Gu Jianxian smiled. "As for Brother Yang's question, this Gu is heading towards Azure Tree Star this time." "Azure Tree Star?" "Yeah. It is one of the cultivation stars under the jurisdiction of my sword union and about a month's journey away from here." "Is that so?" Yang Kai thought for a while before coming to a conclusion and nodding. "Since Brother Gu has made such a generous invitation, then this Yang will be imposing on you." Seeing Yang Kai agree, Gu Jianxian's eyes brightened, and he seemed to be extremely happy. Walking forward, he put his arm around Yang Kai's shoulder and led him towards the starship, acting like old friends who had just reunited. Under the attack of Li Minghai and his group, one of the 3 starships had been destroyed while another had been crippled, leaving just the largest starship. Gu Jianxian was sailing aboard intact. Although this starship was also somewhat damaged, it only needed some minor repairs before it was able to get underway. Aboard the starship, Gu Jianxian arranged for quarters for Yang Kai before excusing himself so he could heal his injuries. Gu Jianxian had just fought an intense battle against Li Minghai, and although he had not suffered any fatal injuries, he had several heavy wounds. This damage needed to be addressed quickly with pills and meditation. Yang Kai naturally understood this and did not mind. After a day of repairs, the starship got underway again. Yang Kai was given an extremely luxurious room by Gu Jianxian, one that was not only large but ornately decorated, with hundreds of luminous stones providing a soft and warm light not inferior to natural sunlight. There was also an incense burner in the room which a calming fragrance wafted from. Yang Kai also had his reasons for accepting Gu Jianxian's invitation. He had traveled quite a distance on his own while arranging space arrays on a few dead stars as transfer points. Now, he needed to connect this network to a real cultivation star, otherwise the cultivators from Shadowed Star would have no end destination. According to Yang Kai's own observations from his star chart, this Azure Tree Star was quite a good cultivation star. If Yi Shiyun and the others could travel through the space array network to Azure Tree Star, they could take advantage of the world energy and world principles there to attempt to break through to the Origin King realm. Another reason was that he did not have many space spirit crystals left. Although Yi Shiyun and the others had collected almost the entire supply of space spirit crystals available on Shadowed Star for him before he left, the amount required to arrange a cross-cultivation star space array was simply too great. The space spirit crystal he had on hand was only enough to arrange one more space array. He needed to find a way to acquire more. Azure Tree Star was a cultivation star under the jurisdiction of Sword Union, and Yang Kai now had a friendly relationship with Gu Jianxian, the young Union Master, so he could use this opportunity to acquire more space spirit crystals. Before doing so though, Yang Kai could take a trip back to the Ur Star to see if Chen Tong, Yi Shiyun and the others had found a space spirit crystal mineral lode. If so, it would save him some trouble. Sitting down in his room, Yang Kai took inventory of his gains. He had not actually acquired much though. After all, he had only killed 3 people in the conflict. Needless to say, Zhang Fu and Lu Dong's space ring basically had nothing of interest to Yang Kai. All of their items would likely wind up in High Heaven Sect's storehouse. As for Li Minghai's space ring, there was a lot of wealth stored inside. Of note was the Origin King Grade Soulbreaker Spear artifact which had now fallen into Yang Kai's hands. Even considering the entire star field, Origin King Grade artifacts were rare things that could not be purchased at will. However, Yang Kai was not too excited about this artifact as among the people he knew, there wasn't anyone suited to using it. For now, he could only set it aside. While taking inventory, a knock suddenly came from his door, and after a moment of surprise, Yang Kai called out casually, "Come in." The door opened and 2 beautiful figures walked in one after the other. "Big brother Yang." He Miao greeted him crisply before setting down a few trays on a nearby table together with Hizeo. Yang Kai glanced over and found that these trays were filled with exquisite delicacies and wine. But he did not pay these things too much mind. At his level of strength, even the finest of foods and wines were nothing but luxuries to stimulate the palate without much practical purpose. Only some special dishes were capable of improving his strength directly. "Are we disturbing you?" Hizeo was a little more mature, and when she saw Yang Kai wearing such a casual appearance, she asked worriedly. "No." Yang Kai smiled lightly before motioning. "Have a seat." "We couldn't." Hizeo waved her hands. "We are here to serve you. Standing is more appropriate. If you have any instructions, please don't hesitate to tell us." "Gu Jianxian asked you to come?" Yang Kai raised his brow. "N." Hizeo lowered her eyes respectfully, while on the other hand, He Miao looked around curiously. Obviously, she had never entered this type of luxurious room before. "Then first sit down, this is an order," Yang Kai smiled. Hizeo hesitated for a moment before nodding lightly and taking a seat with her sister. After assuming an extremely respectful posture, however, Hizeo saw He Miao's restless appearance and shot her a vicious glance. He Miao spat out her delicate tongue before finally settling down as well. It seems that every time I meet you, your situation is quite bad, Yang Kai said with a smile. The first time he met these two sisters in the starfield, they were being chased by Purple Star's cultivator. Just now, they had been ambushed by Li Minghai here. Although the situation was different, the circumstances were quite similar. Hearing Yang Kai's joke, Hizeo's face flushed while He Miao muttered, "We should be the ones saying that." He Miao. Hizeo glared at her little sister immediately, causing He Miao to pout in dissatisfaction. "What's wrong? Big brother Yang won't care." Hizeo's expression became helpless as she looked at Yang Kai apologetically. "Please forgive my little sister, Big brother Yang. She grew up a bit spoiled. It's fine. There's no need to be so nervous." Yang Kai waved his hand. When he met the two sisters back then, because everyone had similar strength, with their cultivation being higher than his own, they were able to interact as members of the same generation. Now though, with such a massive gap in strength appearing between them, Hizeo was having some difficulty adapting. After all, even their honored master was only a first-order origin returning realm cultivator, while Yang Kai had become a third-order origin returning realm master and was even on good terms with their young union master. Seeing her like this, Yang Kai could only change the subject and promptly asked about how they had been these past years. With nothing to hide, Hizeo immediately explained. After escaping from the floating continent all those years ago, they had gone their separate ways. Yushi took the two sisters back to Sword Union, but because such massive losses were incurred during this operation, with a starship destroyed and many Sword Union cultivators dying, as the leader at the time, Yushi almost suffered a disaster. In the end, though, a high-level elder from Sword Union stepped forward to put in a good word for her, allowing Yushi to escape heavy sanction. For this reason, Yushi and her two disciples began to follow Gu Jian Xin, because that senior who spoke for them was one of the young Union Master's supporters.